Hello, welcome to a very special episode of Plat Overwatch. It's the 2022 preseason power rankings. My name is John Microphone, seller of microphones, and I'm back with another of my favorite products, along with three of my fellow colleagues. This time we've actually brought Connor in. I mean, normally the preseason power rankings are me, Custa, and Jonathan fucking everything up. So Connor, you're supposed to be a stabilizing force this year.
I'm John Power Ranking, CEO of Power Rankings, and I'm here to give my favorite power ranking of 2022. Actually, beforehand, right before this, literally yesterday, I was like, holy shit, we're going to do these tomorrow. I need to get mine done. So that way, when we inevitably fuck this up through consensus, because democracy ruins everything, we need to just, as said, that's me on my pro dictator route of life, is that I just had to have my mind ready. So I'm going to be ready.
Custa, do you remember how shit ours were last year? I'm not saying that to trigger a response. I genuinely am asking. I can't remember how bad they were last year.
No, this is the third year we're doing this, remember? Because remember the first year was the one that Johnny insulted Void and that lingers over him.
Jesus Christ, I thought we were over that.
It's still to this day.
Lord.
But I think last year was even more of a shit show. Because I think we were so lost in the source, and then everything changed anyway, so it didn't really matter.
Well, the only thing I remember about Custa is he said Houston were good, and it was the only thing that mattered.
Yeah, I do remember saying.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, we had Matt on last year. Why did we? Whatever happened to that guy, huh?
What, dude?
I don't know,
why is he even on the podcast anymore? Where did he go?
Disappeared.
He's doing other stuff. I'll tell you who else has buggered off. Bren. He buggered off and he took the whiteboard with him. Every year we've had the whiteboard, right? And this year he went back to the UK and he's a very nervous packer. He always likes to have everything, He's got prepared for every different outcome. And he took the whiteboard with him in a Pelican case.
No.
Yeah.
He packed a whiteboard.
He packed the whiteboard. I don't know why. He said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get one of these in the UK, and they're kind of useful, so I'll take this with me. So we're going to try something different this year. We're going to the virtual whiteboard setup in the garage. I'll see you there.
Okay, so we've spent $20 million on this. Here it is.
Look at us.
There it is. Wow.
We're leveling up.
We've gotten some of the best graphic designers and virtual studio designers here.
Look at this.
God.
Wowee. And it almost looks real. That's the incredible thing about it. But it's completely virtual. It's a virtual whiteboard. It's floating in a little virtual void. I mean, I can draw anything on it as well. I could draw...
Is that a virtual marker?
Yeah, this is a virtual marker and a virtual whiteboard. And look, I'm drawing a virtual cat. It's
What? Is this what all this meta hype was about? Is this what meta is?
This is what it means to enter the metaverse.
Wait, is that a permanent marker?
I don't know.
Well, it's virtual, so it can't be.
No, exactly. It's virtual. This is virtual toilet paper.
Permanent virtual marker. It's recorded on the blockchain. You can't get rid of it.
Yeah. Okay, so this is Plat Power Rankings. This is incredibly serious, okay? We've never got any of these wrong, any of the years. So, Connor, I'm looking at you. Don't fuck it up this year, okay? Don't fuck it up.
I won't mess it up. I won't mess it up.
Okay?
I won't.
Also, we did our team previews, but this year we kind of messed it up, and we've actually not gotten to 2 teams so far. Who is it? It's the Florida Mayhem and the Vancouver
Titans.
Yeah. But thankfully, we always start at the bottom of the power rankings anyway, so we'll get to those guys pretty quickly. So don't worry about it. If you're a fan of those teams, hello. There's not many of you out there, but we'll get to you. Don't worry.
I would argue that Vancouver has a lot of fans after last year. Their biggest addition was Pizza Hut. They departed this year, I think. Actually, they might be back.
Do they still have Pizza Hut? Yeah, that's the thing. To me, that changes the power ranking drastically for Titans. Do they still have Pizza Hut as a sponsor?
Yeah.
It changes.
Do we know?
I'm not sure. But it
Does
doesn't really
anyone
matter.
have any sponsors for this year?
We don't. Plat doesn't. So we definitely don't. So I mean, overall. I guess we do technically. Do we have it for this side or is it on the other side? I can't remember.
I mean, it's not for this episode.
We love you guys.
Okay, where do we want to begin? I feel like you gotta start at the bottom, right? And by the way, we're doing a melded power ranking. I saw yours, Connor. You took the coward's way out of separating the regions.
I did.
We're doing.
Yeah, what was that shit? You're just trying to not annoy the APAC region. You're just playing Safety Sally on the fence.
The thing is, I was saving the real hot, spicy merging for this part. I was saving the merging for this.
I'm actually molding on behalf of Avast here. because Custa in his power rankings used tiers. He didn't even put them in like specific places. Used tiers.
No,
tiers
it is left to right.
a coward's way of doing it.
I don't like those tier rankings, but it is left to right. So like, if you look at mine, you can slowly go from the left to the right.
Yeah, but a lot of people aren't going to know that it's left to right. So you look at a lot of very open interpretation.
Yeah.
Politician over here.
Okay, so let's kick things off. I'm just pulling up my phone to open up Avast's power rankings as well.
I mean, I'm ready to put number 20. I'm ready to put number 20 on the board.
I am ready.
Okay, all right, Connor.
London Spitfire.
No,
London
it's not London Spitfire. It's not London Spitfire.
It is.
No, this is going to be my most controversial take of the entire episode. It's not London Spitfire. It's
okay,
the
where do
Vancouver
you want to
Titans.
put them then? You gotta give us a number.
Wait, okay, that's interesting. You're going Titans for the worst.
I'm going
that's
Titans
bold.
in the lowest.
That's interesting. They
only have an off tank. They only have an off tank. They have Aspire and Shockwave, which is a great damage duo. Don't get me wrong, but we need to see that damage duo meld together and actually function together. They have Masa in like the main support role. Great, he was in the grand finals last year, and flex support role. Like I don't even know. London Spitfire. I mean, I don't even know about their flex support role either. But at least Admiral, I have confidence in that guy. I've seen him play contenders, European contenders. I think he's a good leader for that team. Damage trio is really solid across the board. They have a flexible DPS trio with Shax, who's had some amazing moments in the Overwatch League. He struggled a bit in 2021, but overall, Shax is a really competent, high-skill hit-scan player. Sparker, one of the most talented individuals in the league going into this year, who can really excel. I think that he can grow into his own this year. And Backbone to feel like the May.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to pull you up on some of those. We're discussing, Jonathan, number 20, and you're already pulling out statements
this is the most passionate I'll be the entire episode.
Player. You're already pulling out statements like one of the most talented in the league for Sparker.
I mean, he's like top 25 in the world. That's pretty talented.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Impressive.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it on the sell here. London, I mean, they have
they at least have an off tank and a main tank. They can play all the tank heroes.
The main tank is once again, like once we've seen from the meta of Overwatch 2 so far and from the scrims internally, main tank outside of Ryan really isn't that important.
Well, and also, down the line, it might be important. The game might change.
But also, you're talking about Hardy too, and Hardy had a horrendous season.
Okay, so you think that Falls is going to be better on Winston and Reinhardt?
I mean, I don't think Winston's going to enter in the calculus currently, at least for a bit.
Currently, yes, but I mean, this is like 8 months, dude.
Yeah.
7.
Let me defend Johnny, because I agree. I actually think this 20th spot is up to interpretation. I think it's either Vancouver or London, and I think you can put them both in. I think they both have their upsides. Like, it's crazy that the 20th place team might have Aspire and Shockwave, right? Like, those are great DPS duo. They have Sparker on the London Spitfire, as Johnny said. But, like, I don't know. I like London filled me with no confidence last year. We gave them the benefit of the doubt. We said this British Hurricanes team was going to be good. They still have some of the pieces of that. I like Landon. I like Admiral as well. But I just think the consistency and the experience from your Aspires, your Shockwaves, your Masas, I think is really going to help Vancouver Titans with not coming last.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that as well. I also think that Shax's best hero has been Tracer historically. Not hit scan comparatively if you compare it to like Aspire, who's shown like
Cassidy lately. Cassidy too.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I feel like overall Aspire, I feel much more confidence in Aspire on that hit scan role and the dominance there than I do Shax. Not because Shax isn't talented on it. I just feel like historically still he hasn't put nearly as many top tier performances on the hit scan as he has Tracer.
I can already tell that there's a big mental divide between the group in terms of Johnny thinking about all of the potential hero combinations, and Avast is locked in his meta slave cube, thinking Tracer's gone, Ryan Winston's gone.
It's not about this isn't even just about that either. It's just also yes, those heroes aren't particularly relevant, but B, I also still I don't buy the ping argument that suddenly I know everyone likes Hottie, seems like a really great guy, but I'm gonna be honest with you. You're going to tell me, looking at that performance last year, that the low ping is going to fix everything on this team? Low ping is going to change everything about this team that's essentially fundamentally the same, but you've added in a less experienced backline?
I've put the UK massive.
I don't care enough. I'm over it. Can we just go move on?
Yeah, I put the UK massive at number 20. So
I
yeah.
tried London fans.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
To
as well.
clarify,
no.
is this like our end of season predictions or like week 1 power rankings?
End of season. What do you mean?
third year of the season.
When have we ever
This is
done
the
start of the season?
preseason. The preseason power rankings.
No, what do you mean? This is where we think they're going to end up at the end of the year. This has nothing to do with what happens on week 1. This is how they're going to do, like, throughout the entirety of the season. You can't just plan for week 1.
Dude, Josh looks like a worm. His head leaning over the top.
Streamer, play worms.
He's like moisture, please.
It has to be end of season. Now, before we've made a distinction potentially between like regular season and playoffs or something, but frankly, we're not oracles. We can't tell anyway. But yeah, this is supposed to be like when everything's taken into account, where do they settle after they've played all of their games in the year? It's not week 1.
Yes.
Connor has Tracer in the dead pile and rating every Lucio player to the max. So, all right, number 19. So, are we set that it's the Vancouver Titans? Is this just a 2019 kind of lockup and the only conversation is which order they appear in? Is there any argument for putting somebody like Guangzhou down there or one of the teams that has got like double flex support that you think is going to get rolled?
There is a potential for charge. I don't.
Charge. Oh, okay.
But I'm not going to throw it. But I think Titan still goes 19th. I think charge overall. I still probably have more faith. So. I'm still putting charge above them.
I'm still amazed at how shite of a season they had last year. When I look at them on paper, they shouldn't have been that horrendous last year.
Charge?
The Guangzhou Charge, because they just got flattened all year long.
I think they're a team that struggled with like their management. Like didn't they fire a coach in like the first week or something like that?
They had like
I think he left,
a ton of
didn't he?
coaches that changed.
It was the San Francisco Shock coach. Roach something. No, not Roach. Arachne.
Arachne,
Different insect. Yes.
They blew up. And then they had Kaylee and Mandu. Yeah.
I want to throw another name in here as well. Just listen, I'm not saying that I think they should be in 19th, but I want to hear early thoughts. The LA Valiant sucked unbelievably last year. Are you all on the train that they are going to be somewhere around, like, no, not the fucking 5 to 9. I was meaning the other side of it. But, like above the bottom feeder kind of level? Because that roster still has a lot of question marks for me.
I think the problem is they have some big question marks, like Sashin as a tank, like the only tank. But the sheer, like, power that they have on that roster, they have good players from contenders, and they have No Hill, a very storied coach. I'm not throwing them up my rankings because I do have those question marks, but I don't think you can put them, like, I don't think they're in this conversation with your Vancouvers and Londons. I think just on raw talent and experience, I think they'll be better than those guys.
Yeah,
okay.
Do you want to put Vancouver at 19, and then we can maybe discuss Guangzhou Charge?
Find a lock it in.
So, the Charge fan base has been one of the most vocal fan bases in the offseason, especially the last couple of weeks, because I feel like, their reputation, like the hype about them going into the season, people were down on them. They didn't like this roster at all. And the Charge fans realized like 2 weeks ago, like, holy shit, we need to do some PR for our team. They gathered like in the Guangzhou Charge Discord and were like, we need to put together a marketing plan. And I feel like the past 2 weeks, they've just been on a rampage. Reddit, Twitter, everywhere, Weibo. I don't even know. I don't even read the forum, but probably Weibo. And they've just marketed the shit out of this team. I don't like this team. Honestly, I think it's pretty wank. To support line, Unique and Molly. Unique is not special in any way whatsoever. Molly's been a bench boy for like 2 years. Krong, okay, solid. They had a good 2020 season. But Rio was as bad as Hadi last year. Like, he was woeful on the main tank role. And for DPS, you're missing choice one to start in the season. You got Eileen and Develop, who was also benched on the Shanghai Dragons. Develop, he's okay. He's like the Korean Logics. That's my weird take. That's not really accurate. But like, this team is not good. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay, no, let me at him. Give me a second. All right, as someone who is on the Guangzhou Charge payroll, I'm going to defend them a little bit because
why are you getting paid by the Charge?
When did that happen?
The Discord reached out. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Glory to the Guangzhou Economic Development Zone.
As someone who's not a hashtag ad, but like, okay, Johnny. So do you like the Philadelphia Fusion? You think they're a good team?
Yes.
Yeah. So you like the T1 Academy team? You like how they played?
Sure. I mean, if you want to do that thing, okay.
So Unique, you don't like Unique then? Someone who played on that T1 team along with M3's
I watched Unique play. He just like sat back, didn't really do any plays whatsoever, did like pretty solid beats, but there was nothing to like turn fights or try to win fights. It was just
We're talking about 18th here. We're not talking about winning the league. Unique as a standard, playing on that T1 team is better than I think a lot of the other main supports that we have in the league. And I think he's not, you know, Churon.
His nickname is about as unique as he gets when he comes to his play. Dude, he's absolutely so stiff. It's unbelievable.
Okay, so then let's talk about Molly. Molly played for the Chengdu Hunters. He was incredibly good when he played for the Chengdu Hunters in 2020. That is why he got picked up by the Shanghai Dragons. Same thing for Develop.
Oh, Bebe too. Bebe is amazing too, right?
Wait, no, he's good. Like, as you said, this is the Shanghai Dragons. They are very good. Molly was one of the hypest players to come out of 2020 in the flex support role. Yeah, he didn't play the last year, but he's still talented. Then Develop was considered the best rookie signing when Shanghai signed him last year. I feel like people have just forgotten and jumped off the hype train when Develop signed to the Shanghai Dragons.
Sorry, dial the timeline back there. Develop was the most hyped rookie signing of 2020?
No,
living in a multiverse?
He was hyped up in 2021 when he got signed mid-season by the Shanghai Dragons. Like, no one, when he signed to the Shanghai Dragons as the hit scan, nobody batted an eye. Nobody had a problem because they were like, he's a very talented player. He will do well. He will develop on this Dragons roster. Now he's developed, pun intended, and now everyone's like, nah, he doesn't have the chops.
Has he developed, though? Because he hasn't actually seen any play time.
I hope so.
Has he
I don't know.
No, you're just hoping. You're hoping then. You don't have any evidence to back this up.
We're not talking this guy has to be the best in the league. We're talking he's 18th. Like, I feel like people are just discrediting this roster for no reason. Well, they had shit last year, but like they got rid of Kaylee, they got rid of Mandu. Kriv had a bad season. They picked up better rookies, in my opinion, for all of those roles. And then somehow you guys are saying they got worse? Like,
oh no, they haven't. They certainly haven't got worse though, because Chengdu last year would have been like the number 20th, right? If they just ran the same roster again, we would have had them at 20th, I think, because they got absolutely flattened all year long. But I don't think they've gotten worse, but the competition seems to have gotten better this year.
Yeah, I don't think they've gotten worse either. I just think they've remained essentially, they've made some decent improvements across the board, but it's still very much unknowns. Let me
throw another question at you all as well, right? If we're thinking about end of season rankings, do you take into account at all the likelihood that they are just going to get rolled in APAC? And so even if they are a better team than, you know, some of the teams in North America, they actually might not be able to pick up those wins. And so they will naturally just drift further and further down. Because who are they fighting for that win? I mean, they're fighting against like the Valiant for a win. Like if Spark shit the bed, like who are they actually competing against there?
Valiant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I do like simulations in my brain. Like I don't think about it of like they're gonna be stuck in the APAC. I'm running the Vancouver Titans versus the Guangzhou Charge in my mind as we speak. But like I don't try and think of like, yeah, they're probably just gonna get bullied in a harder region. I just think of them like generically overall on paper.
Okay. So if it wasn't going to be the Charge here, who are the other teams that you're considering? Because I think the Valiant are an obvious one, but then we're thinking about who from North America. Because the teams from North America start to get a little better at this point. Are you thinking like
New York and Boston are the two that I have I have Guangzhou above both of those teams.
You have Guangzhou above both those teams?
Yeah, I think both of those teams. I think Boston is going in with a lot of veteran players who have been good in the past, and I'm worried that it's not going to all gel for them. We've seen that they've struggled to get their stuff together in the past in these kind of situations. And then New York Excelsior has negative flexibility. They have a sixth player, and I don't even know if he like realizes that he's just sort of like an imposter there as like an American player on a completely Korean team, and he doesn't really make any sense as a signing. Like New York have
I think Vulcan, he doesn't know that at all. I think he's like, whoa, my team's Korean? Whoa! This is crazy.
Yeah, I think both of those teams, I believe in Guangzhou a lot more than both of those teams. I think Guangzhou's hopefully, like, if Guangzhou comes in and shits the bed again, they drop a coach going into opening weekend, I'll put my hat down. I'll be like, yeah, I messed up. But I trust with this good signings that they will be better than these other teams.
Okay,
I think they have better players.
To even though I don't believe in the Guangzhou Charge, just to support Custa's theory, like, the best thing about for the Guangzhou Charge is honestly one tank this season. So Rio is not going to play as much. He was really bad last season. Now you can just rely on Krong, and he can play really solid off tank, whether it's the Zarya or the Sigma, and you can sort of play around that. Choice one at times, one of the better tracers in the APAC region. He actually like went toe to toe with some of the better tracers in the region, and it was like one of their go-to players when it came to winning matchups. And then you have Develop, who I said is like he's an okay hit scan, but like he's not going when you ask him to like take it against the likes of even like MN3 for the Philadelphia Fusion. I mean, Shy on the Hangzhou Spark.
Well, Johnny, let me interrupt for a second, though.
So,
but let's try and, if you're thinking about comparisons, let's try and compare that to Boston or New York. Because if those are the people he's fighting against, we're talking about playing against Flora or Striker, right? When we're talking about like DPS hit scan matchups, which,
sure.
I mean, he's not winning those, is he?
Yeah, I don't think he's winning those. I'm gonna be real with you. I feel like the charge DPS line outside of Chosewan is like still pretty meh comparatively to a lot of their like counterparts.
And I'm not big on the Boston DPS line. I'm really not huge on.
I think charges might be better than Boston's, but that's about it. But not Striker.
And even Boston have Striker, so it's like, I mean, maybe with Tracer being a bit nerfed at the beginning of the season.
Then. Do you guys think Striker is going to hit his 2020 form? Because here's the thing. I think any player that retires in the middle of a season, I have a big problem with that, because that means that there was some form of issue internally, and then to come back directly after the season, after not playing, like I have a problem with that. And I struggle to think that Striker is going to hit the peak and the pedestal that we all hold him to, right? Like the best tracer in the world. And like, even then on top of that, he now is the primary hit scan. He has to play hit scan at a very high level. We've seen him do it in the past in like 2019, 2020. Like he played a bit of hit scan. It was solid, but it wasn't like to the caliber that these hit scans play at this year. Is Striker going to be able to hit that again? Like,
no.
That's my concern for Boston.
Let's be real. Striker's career has broadly been defined by his Tracer gameplay, and with Tracer being nerfed at the beginning of the season, you're relying on that going back to a state where she's incredibly powerful in the meta for Striker to be the same kind of, Striker that we all keep in our heads as this god tier player. When it comes to his like long range hit scan, he's not a god. He's a really good player, but he's not a god tier player that can carry and win you games in the same way that he can when he plays Tracer. So I think that's actually more important when you're talking about that conversation than any like mentality component of it. Honestly, it's just his hero pool is broadly defined by one hero that's been insane and might not be this year.
Yeah, and that's my big negative for a lot of the Boston players is over the last few years, I think we've seen this trend of rookie players coming in, and especially from high-end rookie players like Contenders, Korea, China, and all that kind of stuff. They have generally overperformed over players that have had experience and veterans in the league over the last 2-3 years. And I think Boston is riddled with those kind of players who have been good in the past on certain teams, and they're kind of like towards the end of their career almost, unless they all have this pop-off season on Boston. So I believe in the rookies of the Guangzhou Charge more than I believe in the old guard for the Boston Uprising. And that's why I have Guangzhou above Boston.
Well, we've been mostly focusing on the DPS in this conversation too, but that's kind of where this is Florida Mayhem. That's where New York kind of get away with it, honestly, because the support line lacks a main support, which, hey, we thought there was a potential that wasn't important particularly, but actually when you play the game, it's crazy important.
Who'd have thought? Yeah. Who'd have thought? Wow.
So, and then their tank line as well is fairly uninspiring. So, how do you weight those rosters? They have strengths in very different places. Where would you lean if we're considering those three teams and leaving out the others? Where would you? Oh, well, I suppose it's not three teams, is it? It's four, because we also had the Valiant in that conversation too.
I mean, also you could theoretically. I mean, this is a very big list because you could even include
Lord Almighty, Connor.
More, but I mean, I won't for argument's sake. I'll leave them out of this. So let's just continue with this four. So let's continue with this four. So we're leaning on like what our 17th is gonna, or our 17th or 18th.
I kind of want to put Valiant or Charge here at 18.
I believe in Valiant over Charge. So
I mean, they have 5 damage players.
They can't lose. They can play full 5 DPS. I believe in Valiant over Charge, though, is my personal take. So I think I would rather put Charge as 8.
I think that the Charge Discord is going to be upset, but we also deal with that.
And you're also going with the Charge, Jonathan?
Yes, I think so. I trust in No Hill and the Valiant. I do. I'm sorry, Custa.
I wanted this to be my Valiant from 2020, the one that I was gonna peg up the list as we slowly as I convince you one by one. Did I not convince any of you?
No.
Remember, I wanted to be right. Okay, I'm gonna come back here. 2020 Valiant, I was right. Okay, I'm just putting that out there, and I think I'm gonna be right about Charge, but we can put him 18th if you guys believe this.
No, I just don't believe in the Charge simply, and big part of it too is the Charge are simply unexciting to me. They are the saltine cracker of the Overwatch league. They hold no joy. They spark nothing in me at all.
Can I do say though, if this team, if Charge end up signing like Aprita, this is nullified. It doesn't matter. This is, you know, the ranking is wrong.
If they sign like Aprita, and if they were able to score like far away or something, like I'd be like, okay, like what's going on? But I mean, I think Molly probably could still be really good.
A unique Molly backline is scary.
Yeah, it's still a pretty good backline. Their backline is probably the best part of this team.
Now the Charge haters are trying to walk it back a little bit after they've already locked them into 18.
No, I'm not walking it. I'm not walking it back. We're just talking about multiverse.
No. In case they were wrong, that was a moment of in case wrong. Refer back to this moment where we kind of backpedaled a little. I think you guys are massively underestimating the DPS line of Eileen, Choice of One, and Develop. I think if Develop hits the peak he needs to, they'll be good.
Before we move on though, Custa, who would you have put at 18th?
I would have put Boston.
All right, well let's start there then. Boston at 17th. Is there another team that deserves being lower than them? Because that would also be the team that I was looking for.
Probably Valiant.
No hill season.
Okay, so here's the thing with the Boston Uprising. Okay, here's the thing with the Boston Uprising. They came in kind of rusty. Obviously, they started practicing later than all these other teams. That was one of the Crimso tweets. Was like, hey, we're not practicing. It's been like a week of Overwatch 2, whatever. We haven't practiced anything. The thing about this team, it's a professional organization. Okay, they're taking this seriously. They just signed Striker. They have 9 members on their organization. I think that overall they're actually like looking to perform. This is not like the Boston Uprising of 2020. They're just like straight up griefing. You know, their fans were.
You're
just
saying
like
they weren't professional then?
So, no.
What about the 2021 Boston that tried and also didn't do well?
They were not. Were they not professional then either?
Yeah, they were. I thought they were very professional.
What happened? They put on their ties. They just go into the office now, or what's going on?
Yes, they have indeed put on the ties. This is a professional organization that is aiming to succeed. They built on last year's roster that had some flaws. There was still an okay roster, last year.
They actually did all right.
They were still okay. They got 15th, went 7-9 last season. 5th to 6th in play-ins. Not the greatest.
But once again, remember that they were farming teams. They were farming teams like London Spitfire as well for part of that.
And they will continue to farm the teams of London Spitfire, Vancouver Titans, New York Excelsior, probably. There's lots of teams that could just like have bad games. Okay, Striker, he's at the end of his career. How old is he? He's 22. Wow, Jesus Christ, Striker is old. 22 years of age.
Also, I don't think anyone. By the way, I don't think Striker's career is like towards the end. I think this could. I'm not part of that narrative. I don't think that's the narrative I'm agreed with. So
I think that this team, it was shafted a little bit last year because they had a pretty decent roster. I'm trying to go back and just see. They had their DPS line was Valentine, Colorhex, and I'm37 last year.
Yeah, that's fairly shocking.
Valentine, Colorhex.
Yeah, luckily now they've got Victoria. Luckily now,
Victoria's pretty good. Hey, the Boston Uprising fans, they've also been on a PR train about Victoria. Okay, this is the most underrated player of the entire league, according to Boston Uprising fans.
Don't believe it,
Victoria.
And also, guess what? Okay, Valentine was pretty decent last year. Not that.
Valentine, yes, he had a pretty poor subpar 2021, but he's not playing with Colorhex and I'm37 anymore. He's playing with Striker and Victoria. Okay, Valentine is freed. He's unshackled. He can finally play the flex roles that he actually want to play, and it doesn't have to be like this star performer against your ranked XQC duo. I'm 37 all the time. So I actually think that the Boston Uprising here, they've got something going. They're a professional organization. Faith Crimson, City Backline.
Professional organization.
It hurts me every time you say that.
They have 3 tanks, okay? A team that signs 3 tanks. They're trying to do something.
Two of them play the same role.
Problems.
Two of them play the same role.
Why did Itzel get signed? Like, can you just, like, this professional organization, they have 2 tanks. They have a main tank. They have an off tank. Everyone's really excited about those players. Isn't that scary when all of a sudden they just sign another tank? You're like, why did you sign this guy? No, they're just trying to round
things out. They're like, okay, Marvel, you can play like the Reinhardt and the Sigma, Itzel, you can play the Winston and the Wrecking Ball, and Punk, you can do like the Zarya and the, Doomfist. I don't know, maybe it's like I'm the Doomfist. I don't even know. But they've rounded out like literally every single hero in the tank department. They have it planned out, okay? They have 3 members to complete one single role. That's professionalism right there.
You are so unbelievably high on the Boston Copium. It's outrageous. I want to put Boston at 17th.
Who got to you?
Yeah,
like it started last year as well. It started last year for Johnny too. At some point, Johnny's been compromised. I don't know what's happened.
Okay, how did they do? Okay, fuck, they did lose against Toronto.
They looked not good. good. Not good.
Yeah.
Okay, Johnny, I want to go back on something that you said. You said that Boston is going to farm on NYXL this year. You said that earlier. Do you want to put NYXL in 17th before we put Boston?
No.
I have unfortunate news about tomorrow's power ranking video on the official Overwatch League YouTube channel.
What?
What have you done?
What
That
did
might be the
you
case.
do?
What have you done on
You
the
put
official
New York
channel?
at 17?
No, I don't know about 17, but I put Boston Uprising above them. They're well-rounded. They're way more well-rounded.
Yeah.
Okay, but what they've done
they're
is
strikers.
they're well-rounded in the way that a polished turd is well-rounded. It's perfectly spherical, but all of the innards are shite. They cover every role with mediocrity. There is nothing impressive at all, apart from Striker, and Striker himself I don't think is going to have as good of a season as he's ever had in the past.
I actually think their backline's good, though. I'm going to say Faith, Crimso backline, actually a pretty good backline.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually probably better than it's certainly more well-rounded than the NYXL backline.
Yeah.
If they all hit their form, right? If I'm wrong about Striker, Crimso plays to the highest level we've seen him play. Victoria pops off as a rookie. Like, don't get me wrong, this Boston team is going to be good, and I think they will be easily middle of the pack as a team. I can't see it happen. Boston has very rarely been able to cultivate talent effectively and use it to its best ability. I think if I had my sounding alarm of the team that I think is going to implode this year, Boston is number one for me. I think Boston is the team that will explode. Yes, I'm losing the internet.
Whoa! The Custa slideshow.
I think it's on our end. So
the rumors are that.
Yeah, I'm being suppressed by Huck.
I've put Boston at number 17.
I'm gonna pull a Custa. Just you guys wait until later in the season when Boston
Hey,
Uprising.
can I interject here? I'm going to pause because I think the internet
guys.
problem is on our end. So I'm going to pause real quick. See if I can fix it. All right.
Whoa.
After a brief moment, we are back and our internet is fixed. Wyatt was downloading marbles on stream and was taking up our internet. So we're back.
Incredible. That's the professionalism of the Plat Studios. We're a professional company, similar to the Boston Uprising.
We got people on here. It's already peaked.
Yeah. True.
Okay, next teams that we're discussing. New York, we've already been talking about. Valiant, definitely. We need to start discussing them seriously to put them in at this point because they are drifting so high up the list just passively. And then I feel like throwing in two others as well. Paris and Florida.
We got so much on our plate.
But
Paris,
That's 4 teams. That's 4 teams.
That's 4 teams.
Yeah, I like it.
Do you
I like
not
this
think?
idea.
Do you not think we have to start thinking about Paris and Florida at this point? Like
Yeah,
Paris
we
and
should.
Florida are just going to start
Yeah.
drifting to the mid-table.
No, they're top
We
15.
should.
without any discussion.
No, we should start thinking about them. We should. But I'm willing to lock in the 16th, though.
Valiant.
I'm willing to lock in New York.
I'm good to lock in New York as well. I think if those are the four that we're going to put below them, I think New York has to go there.
I'm willing to put New York right there at 16th. I just the problem is it physically pains. I am receiving psychic damage. So much psychic damage for looking at the Yaki Flora DPS line and being like, this is not going to be a great team. And I'm like, but the problem is that it is like a car with square wheels. This team makes no sense. Get it all. It can't go higher. It can't go higher than 16.
What would happen to your perception of New York if they signed a main support?
If they signed a main support, I'd be like, okay, I'm willing to see some moves. But then
But
also,
would they shoot up significantly?
it depends on the main support.
Yeah. Because I feel
If
like
you've got a good one, then yeah,
but
maybe.
to me, when I look at New York, it's inevitable. Like this roster is not going to exist for the entire season with no main support. Whereas when I look at the Shock, I feel like they're just going to run Violet Lucio all season long, and they're not going to do anything about it because that's what they were
also,
trying
I
to
mean,
do
you
last
could also
year.
make the argument for Houston potentially as well. Like, you can make the
Sure.
argument for Houston as well.
Yeah,
So
but,
I mean, like,
but
I
when
don't
I
know.
look at New York, they're not gonna. I just can't wrap my head around the idea that they'd be like, Lucio, most powerful hero in the game right now. Let's just give it to Myeonbong, and there we go. Solved.
What if it's a budget thing? What if there's the reason they're sticking into this sort of small minimum type of roster? I don't think it is, by the way. I don't think it is a bunch of things, but there's always a possibility. So,
Yeah.
Like as I said, I feel bad for them if it's a roster thing, but they have negative versatility. Like, I just have such a big problem. Like, I can see, the funny thing is, New York, I can see them competing for a stage if we end up in like the perfect meta for all of them, right? Like, let's say we end up in like some hypothetical of like a Zen, Ana, Tracer, I don't know, Cassidy, Winston meta. Like, it doesn't even make sense. But like, if they all get to play their best heroes, this team is really good. They cannot play they don't have the flexibility to play everything, all the metas, all that kind of stuff. Like, is this team going to be good at Brawl? Probably not. Like, that's probably going to be a problem heading into.
That's honestly my biggest worry. Honestly my biggest worry, because when I look at this team on paper, I'm just like, oh yeah, I Yaki and Flora DPS duo, Kellan when he plays his best heroes, and like when they signed Kellan, I was just like, oh, it's like him and Hisang, in contenders, and they're gonna have this duo, and like him and Yaki are gonna go crazy. I'm just like, Kellan can play like Wrecking Ball and Winston. If he isn't allowed to play those two heroes, this team is going to suck ass. And it's going to be the meta. He's not going to be able to play his best heroes. Yaki and Flora are going to be permanently struggling because their tank can't play the two heroes he's best at. They don't have a main support. I mean,
do you not think somebody that really understands that kind of engaged tank stuff would enjoy playing Doom? Like, just hard Doom tank? Are you
Doom? Sure, but like, just because I'm good at Winston doesn't mean that my Doom is going to carry you in ranked either. Like, it's not the same hero. It's really not the same hero. It's not.
It's not the same.
Like straight up diving.
But it's not the same as it was when it was a DPS pick either. It's much more of a main tank playstyle than it ever was like a DPS playstyle. I feel like the argument is just that the main tanks wouldn't be able to aim the fucking left click to be able to do enough damage throughout. They're going to understand the main gameplay loop.
We'll see.
I want to jump in.
I can't tell for sure.
I want to jump in and give you this comparison because it's obviously very clear. Like, this is essentially the Florida Mayhem, but in blue now, right? And let's talk about the Florida Mayhem with a lot of the situations of last year.
How is it the Florida Mayhem? Oh, you're talking about from what previous year? Oh,
yeah, from previous years. It's Gangnam Jin, you got Yaki, you got Kuki coming over, right? Like, they have like some of the bones. Florida Mayhem had the exact same issue last year where they have a very small roster. They only wanted to play those 6 players. They were really good in the main melee when they could play the heroes that they were good at and the style that they were good at. As soon as we got out of that, they just did not, they ceased to exist. They just became one of the worst teams in North America. I think this New York Excelsior has the exact same problem as that.
Yeah. It pains me to put them so low because I feel like with a single roster move, this ranking is just moronic. But okay.
I mean, with two roster moves, this team would be great.
So
the thing that hurts me the most is Valiant is going to be top 15 then.
Exactly. You're putting New York here below Valiant, below Paris, below your who else? Florida's. I guess
I'm willing to make the next step after this. But yeah, I think New York 16. I'm willing to then engage in the Valiant problem right after this. The Valiant issue right after this.
All right. Yeah. Well, listen, I'm putting New York at 16th.
It's fucked already.
Yeah.
No,
it's not. It's perfect.
It's really good.
No.
It's really good.
It's perfect.
No, it's even including charge. It's fantastic. So let's look at 15 then. 15 Valiant. I'll put it right there.
Yeah, I think it just has to be Valiant.
They can't creep up any further. They simply must be stopped.
They can't keep getting away with it.
Okay, so let's talk about Valiant then for a second, because we've given them the honors of climbing all the way up to 15th with Sashin as solo tank and 5 different damage players for this team and a Coldest Lengsa backline. Okay, so let's start with the backline. Let's just get it out of the way. Coldest and Lengsa, I think that's a good backline.
It's fine.
I think Lengsa's the truth. I think Coldest is really good.
Coldest didn't get the most playtime on Hangzhou Spark, etc. But like, he's good. Like, if you put him on Ana, he can get the job done. He can get the Bionates, the sleeps, etc. He can be an impact player. Lengsa, good main support player for this team.
Is it a better backline than everybody we've ranked so far? Because I think it could be.
It might.
Boston Uprising is a professional organization. They have 3 support players. MCD.
I'm gonna fucking leave.
MCD, Crimso, double flex support, and Faith as a really solid main support.
That's what he's known for, I guess.
It's well-rounded main support. Boston Uprising.
The Boston backline's good, probably potentially slightly better than this backline. And then the Charge backline's actually not awful, depending on how Molly performs. Like,
but I think I would rate this backline better than the Charge backline. I think Boston covers more bases and might be a bit more proven perhaps as well, but I think this backline's fucking good. I think this backline deserves to be rated at 15th. It's where you go outside of that.
than ever. Well, the thing is, let's look about their DPS players. They have 19 million of them. So, but they have good players under it, right? Like they have Innovation and Ezhan, right? Like who is the Team CC DPS duo, and that is a good team. Like they didn't have the best of season, and I don't think they're the best, that the Contenders has to offer, but we're at 15 here, right? Remember? Like Haker, I don't know anything about. So apparently a Sombra one trick.
He's a Sombra one trick.
He's a Sombra one trick that No Heal has embodied. I don't know, just in case of emergency Sombra meta, they're just gonna crack that, and then Haker's gonna come out. And then you have Dia and Becky. Like I think Dia has question marks because he didn't play in 2021, but we know he's a talented player. Becky, like with those 5 players, surely they can put together some useful DPS lineup that is going to be able to compete with these teams.
What is this conspiracy theory that I've been seeing from Avril talking about Becky all over the place? Like
I don't know.
Well, first of all, you have to focus on one thing. So every year there's a set of meme teams that are established by a council, and Valiant is in that tier. I'm telling you right now, Valiant is a meme team, not because they're necessarily going to be awful, but because the council of memers have already come together. They've convened and they've said Valiant is a meme team now. So whatever you see out there, it could essentially just be propaganda from the Ministry of Truth that's coming out. Like it's whatever you're seeing, it could be complete and total fabrications about Valiant. So just keep everything about that when you consume media related to them.
I think you know how to do like behind the scenes like documentaries about like other sports and stuff. Like obviously Formula 1 is like Drive to Survive. That's not as in depth, but like for NFL even they do like a thing where they follow like a franchise, an NFL franchise, the entire season. It's like behind the scenes practice, planning, stuff like that. I would pay so much money to see 5 damage players on the LA Valiant try to battle for 2 singular spots. And who gets left out? Who's going to be like the 5th best, the 4th best option? What do you do to like sabotage the other DPS players' PC? Like do you pull out their internet cables?
And also,
like,
Assassin is like the most secure, literally most secure job in the history of the I mean, right up there with like Kellen, like in terms of like only
they have 2 support players for 2 roles, and they have 1 tank and 5 DPS players. Like they're a permanent 3 and 5 damage players. This is the most ludicrous thing I've ever seen in my life. It's like they don't have any understanding of what ego is like and how mental health factors.
The best part too is that
oh my God.
2 of their players, both Dia and Assassin, like they have 2 players on this roster that are potentially starter, or said definitely Assassin, but also potentially Dia that have like not played in like 2 years.
Yeah,
basically have not played the game of Overwatch.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room, Sashin, right? Like who was looking at Sashin? Like he's apparently a mechanical warlord, right? Like was it last time when we talked about the Valiant? He was 4,600 in all 3 roles, so on Korean servers, which is impressive. That's nice to do, but like, is he going to be able to play tank in the league at that level? Like, I don't think so, right? Right?
Honestly, I have no idea. The tank role feels like it's I don't know. It feels like it's different in terms of how you play it, but is it different enough that it's hit the reset button so that people like that who are just playing on ranked ladder would be able to come in and play it? I think from the very small amount that I've been watching and playing so far, it feels like there's a little less to the like insane teamwork demand of the main of the tank role compared to previously. Are you on board with that take at all? That there might be a bit more individuality to it and an ability to play it kind of outside of the strict confines of your team, like being hyper aware of where your off tank is at all times, getting insanely punished if you overstep your boundaries. Like I feel like it might be a bit looser this season compared to. Because I feel like in previous years, if you had a main tank that didn't know how to play main tank, they got hard fucking rolled and it was obvious and they were just trash. I feel like this year there might be a bit more freedom for people to play like a bit weirder and not get hard punished to that degree. There's less CC, there's less damage output. I feel like you might be able to get away with it a bit more.
Maybe it's the idea of like the mechanical warlords. I think, as you said, the main tanks, the problem with them, it wasn't that they didn't mechanically understand how to play main tank. It's just like when there was so much coordination and so much strategy, like it was very obvious that they didn't know where they were supposed to be and when they were supposed to be there. Well, I think like, especially with what we've seen of Doomfist so far, like I don't think there is a way to play Doomfist, it's, at least right now, right? Like it's more about how do you understand how to use your cooldowns and your rotations. And I think that's true with a lot of the tanks. So I agree with you. I think it's going to be more individuality and that mechanical skill that's going to pull you off, and not as much of that teamwork aspect and strategy that is a lot harder to learn.
Yeah, I think it's weird because you have so much responsibility as the tank, but there might actually be a bit more freedom in terms of how you play it this year. Maybe just because the game is still getting figured out by people too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea
does that
of
sell
like,
you on Sashin at all?
I think it sounds good in your head when you're like, oh, if you get a really flexible off-tank guy who can just like step into the tank role and play a lot of these different heroes, whether it's Doomfist, Zarya, Sigma, you know, it doesn't really matter what the kid is. Like they understand like mechanics and they're skilled in that way. Like that sounds like a very romantic idea. But the thing I worry about is like damage taken, and how do you understand like how much damage you're going to take, what position to like withdraw to not overextend as much as possible, how to like keep up momentum offensively without overextending, stuff like that. And I worry like someone like Sashin, like obviously he hasn't played for like quite some time. I don't know what he's going to look like, but I worry about him like feeding a bit of times and like overextending and dying when he shouldn't have. And that's where having a main tank player that like plays Reinhardt and knows like shield management and stuff like that, Orisa, like managing those kind of defensive cooldowns, stuff like that. That's where I think that's kind of handy, because they're less likely to overstep their boundaries with like Sashin, who was a mechanically skilled Zarya player. Maybe sometimes he'll, you know, mess that up a little bit when it comes to diving heroes or Reinhardt or the shield, etc. So that's what I'm worried about primarily with Valiant, that when they lose, it might just straight up look like Sashin is feeding and they're just looking really bad.
So if we withdraw out from the tank discussion a little bit, do you feel fine about them being at 15th? Because honestly, I feel like there's so many fucking questions with this team. Like so many. And I understand
giving
that they're 15. I hate that they're 15.
Good players,
I understand giving No Hill the
coach.
benefit of the doubt, and I understand that they have a roster that is kind of well-rounded. I mean, apart from the tank, but the other roles, I mean, they're all there.
That's copium. That's copium right there. Listen to yourself.
How is that copium?
How is that copium?
Well-rounded,
How is that copium?
but they have one tank.
I think their support line
we
is
said no
just
about the
straight
tanks.
up good. I mean, they don't cover double flex support, but that doesn't seem like it's going to be that important at the moment. But their DPS line is kind of the fucking definition of well-rounded. They can go anywhere.
They have a Sombra one trick in their team. They're well-rounded. Like,
and in the tank also, it's an off-tank player, so specifically someone that's going to be more comfortable on these off-tank roles.
I did say apart from the tank, though.
And he
not
did
on
say
the
apart
tank.
from the tank.
I'm
But also, I don't think the tank is well-rounded. But the point is like at least if they're going to go solo tank, I'd rather you start a solo tank originally off-tank player than a solo tank main tank, in my opinion.
If your argument is the LA Valiant are well-rounded, I'm telling you, Boston Uprising is more well-rounded than this.
Well, yeah, Boston Uprising but Boston Uprising
players
are
aren't as
also just. Well, actually, I mean, what about if you just compare like to like? Because New York are a weird team, right? New York are weird because they miss so many roles, but the players they've got on there are pretty good. But they just are a really weirdly constructed roster. But if you compare Valiant to Boston, like for like, are you confident in saying Valiant is a better team than Boston Uprising are on paper?
Yes.
Because
yes. I'm not confident because it all comes down to Boston and not shitting the bed. But I think, yeah, I'm more confident that Valiant will finish above Boston.
I have more confidence in the Valiant coaching staff right now because Boston has given me nothing.
Who does Boston even have at the moment?
Laurie is their head coach.
It's Laurie from last year.
Still, same one as last year.
And they couldn't figure. And honestly, it wasn't all Laurie's fault because of the Valentine situation with Tracer for parts of the season. But I still felt like outside of the one meta where they kind of figured out like the Genji stuff they wanted to play, which by figuring out they just played on a Genji. Like I don't feel like they ever had any great particular reads. Like their fundamentals never felt like super strong. Like it didn't feel like at any point I could be like, oh yeah, this coach is going to fix their issues, right? And I feel like they haven't necessarily fixed a lot of these problems with this roster. When I look forward, like they don't have a lot of great star power. I mean, Marvel and Punk essentially play the same role. They both play Sigma. You know, like I don't know. It's just to me, I don't confidence.
I really don't like putting Valiant at 15th, but I don't really like putting them anywhere else either. So the bottom of the table seems a bit of a mess to me. Custa, Connor, are you locking Valiant into 15th here?
I'm locking Valiant into 15th.
I'm happy to put them
Also,
there.
I feel a strong convalescence of meme energy revolving around this team like a vortex. And to me, there's something going on with it. It's bubbling. It's bubbling.
Is it because No Heal feels like a shit poster a little bit? Like, have you seen some of the stuff like that's coming out? Like, I feel like we're gonna get good content out of Valiant, so maybe I'll just bump them up for that.
I think
as well.
I just really want Valiant to do well, also because the fact that the organization is was such a nightmare position after the Immortals situation, you know? And I want them to have some sort of redemption now that like they're kind of they're not free from Immortals because they still own them, but they're kind of like there's no miasma of the Immortals like chopping everyone last minute roster. I kind of want to see like a more independent entity taking place now.
I'd like the players to win and the org to lose. Unfortunately, that's not possible.
Well, it is possible. It is possible. If they have a mediocre performance, but they keep after sending money, the org loses and the players are winning because they're not awful. So, like, I mean, that's literally the definition of winning on both sides.
Okay, I kind of hate the way that we've structured 15 to 17, but let's move on. 14th place. Now, who the fuck are we talking about here? We're talking about Paris,
Mayhem,
Florida.
And
okay, I want to throw a hat in the ring on this one and sort of get a litmus test because
Spark,
this is where
I think Spark should go maybe in there.
I want to throw Washington Justice into the ring because a part of me thinks this team is going to suck again, and I'm kind of just going down with that ship at this point. I lost all confidence with that organization last year. They have the bones of the team that they had last year. They still have the same coaches, and I'm a little worried that going into a completely new game, I have no confidence that this team is going to be able to adapt, which is ridiculous because they have so much talent. But I don't love all the players that they've signed except for Happy.
God.
We should make a 4 team. We should be these 4 teams then. I think the next 4 teams we should look at should be Mayhem, Eternal, Spark, Justice.
Okay, I am on the Spark shitting the bed train, but not heavily enough to put them at 14th. I feel like I just can't. I am really confident that Spark have a solid chance of shitting the bed. You know, there's like a 60% chance of bed shitting, but it's still not enough to put them at 14th, I think, because their roster's good. It's better just on paper than the other people.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'll agree with that. Yeah.
But I do want to address the Washington Justice thing first, with that Custa brought up, because this team last year, I hated it. But they can't do that again, can they? Are they just going to do that?
Listen to yourself. That is copium. That is the copium of they're not going to. And I think the whole community is that aspect of like they've kept the same pieces, and like everyone's just like it can't be as bad as it was last season. But like fundamentally, nothing has changed. Like they haven't picked up any like gargantuan players other than Happy. Happy is an upgrade over Jerry, but their backline, I have the exact same question marks that we went into last season with Bebe and Closer, with Opener, with Krillin. I like Vigilante. But like, it's hard. Like Vigilante, they can't start with Vigilante, and then Vigilante's going to play over Krillin. Like Opener's the one I have the big question mark over, and he's the main support, and we know how impactful main support is right now. So it's like, do I have anyone who wants to jump on the Washington disappointment train?
So I'm always willing to jump on that train. I always have a ticket. I have a permanently reserved ticket on that train, in fact, but. I don't
monthly membership.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a reoccurring subscription, I would be first class in the first class cabin for that one. The biggest problem I have with Justice going that low is that there's still enough talent on the roster that I'm like, okay. And also surely the coaching staff and the front office staff we had a mushroom fungal network moment and combined their brains to be like, maybe we don't do the exact same problems that fucked us last year. Like, surely that had to have happened, right?
But also, I'm not even confident they know how to fix the problems that happened last year because they didn't really fix them.
Okay, so what were the problems? What were the problems last year? Mag couldn't play Wrecking Ball, and Assassin got the yips playing Sombra. And then Decay as well.
No, also their back line was mediocre too.
Yeah, their brig was really
even more fundamentally
and their coaching
than
direction was very bad, and their subbing strategy was bad.
They simply didn't understand many of the metas, even though they had all of the pieces to be able to work with them. Their players just didn't get how to play with each other at all, and they just ran into metas, papished for a while, and took weeks until they were good at it, even though they have crazy player quality. That's a fundamental issue.
The best they looked was like Summer Showdown when they played like the Lucio Moira thing and just like went back and forth with teams throwing ultimates. Like
and Melee like, on Winston when Mag went head to head with Smurf.
I mean, that they did.
But they also, even when they played the Lucio Moira stuff, they had a period where they looked awful at it, and then they had a period where they looked amazing at it. This is the reason that I don't think Justice belong at 14th, is because I think they're going to oscillate from like 15th up to, I don't know, somewhere around here.
I agree.
But their average is not going to be 14th, I don't think. So I think they could be at this point at some point during the season.
But I don't want them at 14th. I think we need to talk about some of the other teams before we even start putting Washington down.
I can't put them at 14th. I can't put Spark at 14th. So that leaves Mayhem and Eternal.
All right, I want to start with the Florida Mayhem because they're getting away with it because Connor's on the show and we're all afraid to tell him. We're all afraid to tell him the truth.
Me. Yeah, I'm directly on the team. That's my problem.
It's also the Scrimbucks exchange right now. If you want to believe into that, obviously it's a dying breed. People don't like to buy in as much as they have in the past, but the rumors are is that Florida Mayhem has been doing very, very well. But I also like their roster, and I've been saying this for a while. I think when we first saw the pieces coming together, we were like, oh, this isn't very good. But then, you know, NYXL, it was this crazy thing. They got closer to the season and they started signing more players and rounding out their roster after Scrim results. We have Exy coming in who had a crazy 2020 season with the Paris Eternal, and he should be an upgrade if he stays healthy. We have Kariv to round out the support line. I think Sermarjet and Kariv are both very, very solid. And then I think people don't really like their tank line because they don't know it. But I think Adam, I actually think is very, very good. And I think it covers a lot of the bases. The team is well-rounded.
Yeah.
And I like that. Plus, I'm a Goomba simp. Like, I've worked with him as a coach. I'm a big fan of Goomba. I've worked with him so I can actually speak to it. He's a very smart guy, and he just knows how to get results. He understands the game in a good way. And he's a robot. Like, that dude just... He's like moneyballs everything, and this is a prime example of how he can moneyball.
I mean, I think they've got some nasty good pieces that nobody was paying attention. Well, I'm not going to say nobody was paying attention to, but like having Hydron on this roster, along with then you also have like someone on Adam. I think someone on Adam are probably going to be the most underrated tank line in the league because they were both at the top of people's lists in previous years for being picked up, and for whatever reason it just didn't work out, and now they both land up in the same team together here.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that this team could easily have been like 16, 17 when they only had Mirror as well. But like picking up XC, I think they've just rounded out their roster like incredibly well.
Why? Yeah. Why do you think XC rounds out their roster super well? Because to me, it feels like XC and Hydron are going to be competing quite a lot for a spot.
I don't think so necessarily. I think Hydron might play like some of the Tracer stuff as well, where XC can rely on like the Cassidy, Ash, Widowmaker, stuff like that. We'll see when he gets to NA and can play with the team, etc. But I think with like Mirror, when you look at that DPS line with Mirror, it's like Checkmate, Hydron, and Mirror. I think there's a lot of flex stuff going on there, but you're lacking like the proper hit scan players. Like Hydron can do some of that stuff, but I hate being in a position where like Checkmate has to play Tracer sometimes because Hydron has to play like long range hit scan and stuff like that.
I mean, having double hit scan Hydron XE is pretty fucking nasty, actually.
Yeah, I think that's really nasty. The back line is like the big concern because you got Anamo and Karib, which is like two strikers, but in the support
there's also going to be a Majed as well.
What's going on with Majed's visa? Because I keep seeing
he's flying to North.
memes about,
he's on a plane right now.
He's on a plane right now.
Albert is a fucking guy in a cave battling the giant monster of the visa.
No, I think he's on a plane like right now. He posted that he's at the airport like flying to the NA right now.
Right. So
I think this is a good roster. I think it's a good roster with good coaching.
All right, well then let's consider the Paris Eternal because the Paris Eternal don't have the same depth to their roster as the Florida Mayhem do, but they still have some pretty good pieces. Well, they got Glister Naga as their DPS line, which seems pretty potent to me. And then they have as their tanks, they have Dan and Vestola, right? Yeah, which I don't feel as confident in Dan and Vestola as I do about someone Adam, but Vestola did play pretty well last year. He was impressive.
Yeah. I think there are two ways you can go about the Paris Eternal. Either you're like pretty bullish on them and you're like, hey, this is a really good strategic team. They've shown in the past that they can play a lot of different play styles where they play their, famous European brawl style with like Reinhardt, Dan playing the Reinhardt, and they play like Naga plays the Mei, something like that. Like they even played some Wrecking Ball last year with Naga playing the Pharah as well, Dan playing the Wrecking Ball. Khan is, of course, like an impact player on the flex support role, playing the Zenyatta or the Ana as well. Like Khan is one of the most underrated flex support players in the league because he has that impact kind of play that you need, especially in Overwatch 2 with like Bio Grenade, Sleep Dart, stuff like that. And I think the DPS line, like Glister, he can be a good hit scan player as well, who can battle some of the better players in the league, and Naga can play pretty much all the kinds of heroes he needs to do. So I think Paris Eternal, like they're a well-rounded team, good strategically, can play a lot of different compositions, and I think they'll take it to a lot of different teams. But if you want to take like the opposite of that, maybe last season they had a really easy strength of schedule. They pretty much only shot on like some of the worst teams in the North American region. They ended up 8-8. I think a lot of those wins came from like Florida Mayhem, Lone Spitfire, Vancouver Titans. And so now when the competition is tougher, are you going to be able to keep performing against some of the other North American teams? I think it's going to be tougher for them. But I do have a weak spot for the Paris Eternal, but I think you can make an argument for them being good and bad.
I think I want to use the word gatekeeper. Because I think that's the word I want to use, because I think this team is solid. Like I feel like this is the only team in the league that are like, I know what I think I know what I'm going to expect. Like they're going to be good. We saw from them last season. They haven't changed a lot of that core structure. I think they have solid players. Do I think they're going to be able to beat a lot of the top end teams? Probably not. No, at least not consistently. But I think they're going to consistently beat the other teams that we currently have below this 14th spot right now, almost every time. And I think they're in a pretty solid spot. We're here in the 14th of, they're a good team. I don't expect them to ever overperform or underperform. And I think they'll just sort of be that good middle for the league, and kind of a litmus test for where teams stand at that moment.
I also think they're a team that I don't think is going to fluctuate as much as the other. So their like rank might end up being very different to 14th, but it's probably because other people shit the bed that we ranked above them, or people went crazy that we ranked below them. But I think it's more likely they move up because people shit the bed. There's a lot of people we're going to rank above Paris that have a higher variability than Paris do, I think. I'm good with Paris at 14th. I was thinking about Mayhem originally, but I really don't think that Paris should be ranked above them at all. I think Paris are the next team.
I agree.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm pretty locked in. I also think it's a big structural difference too, because also everything has to be, from what I've been told, Avala has to translate everything from their coach to the players.
That doesn't surprise me.
They have to go directly through, like, she is the team's translator.
What?
And they don't have a, yeah.
I have a big problem with that. And I had those concerns when I first heard that. Like, people talked about like, oh, J-Mac's crazy. He had that, 20-page dissertation type thing. And it's like, how is he going to communicate? They only have one Korean player on the team. And if Avala, the GM of the team, has to be the translator, something that I heavily struggled with when I was on a player on a mixed roster is there is a difference between translating what we're talking about on a thing and talking about the game at a high level and being able to translate it at that high level and those complexities. Especially if there's not a lot of Korean players as well on the team, it gets even harder.
How did he translate how did he communicate rather with the North American Contenders team that he coached?
I'm honestly not sure on all the specifics with that. The tech stuff is easily translatable, like all the tech stuff that he did. All I know is that's what I've been told, is that Aval is doing most of the translation. So
that's bonkers. I can't wrap my head around that. So
I personally think Paris Mayhem structure is still better because of the Gumbo coach he did in that structure.
Yeah, no, I'm on board with you. And is there an argument for putting one of those high variability teams, a Spark, a Justice, who else is in that conversation actually?
It's like Philly, Toronto. Then I think you're the teams that you're looking at. Like,
we have to talk about them soon. They're probably not on this list. I'm fine to put Mayhem next.
I want to put Washington before Mayhem.
You want to put Justice before Mayhem? Really? Oh, I feel like you're going hard Scrimbucks
train.
You're on hard
I feel like Custa is doing the opposite of Hopium. Whatever the opposite of Hopium is, I don't know what it is. It's not hatred, but it's Doomium.
I'm on the Doomium
about the Washington Justice right now. I side with Avast here. I think on paper, this roster is too good to rank.
Like it's simply almost exclusively you're making a run on the bank, the Scrimbucks bank here. If you're telling me right off the gate that Mayhem should be worse than Justice, that's crazy. As someone that is also really, the thing is, if I was doing this based off of Scrimbucks, like kind of feeling in the air thing, I'd be like, okay, sure, I'd be willing to do that. But like overall across the whole year, it doesn't make sense right now for me to put Justice below Mayhem.
If they change, and this isn't even an attack against the head coach, it's just the fact that, like, from the way that they were managed and coached last year, if they had changed some of the major structure, the only addition they made was Ty Dollar as an assistant coach. If they had made more changes, I would be more confident in this team. It is not about the raw players on the paper. It is the fact that it was poorly utilized, and I can't get past that, seeing as they haven't changed it.
I feel like also the thing is that I do agree poor utilization is going to be an issue. But when we're talking about these teams at this level, the thing is we're heading to a fresh game. It's going to be fucking chaos. Overwatch 2, like there's going to be more DME elements than ever before. Obviously, that will be refined over time. But when I'm looking at this particular year, I don't necessarily think that like poor utilization is going to stop them from being better than some of these other like lower mid-table teams because their caliber of player will just be so high, you know?
We said that last year.
Okay.
But no, you said that last year. I did not. I wasn't on that ranking. I believe Justice was way worse than you guys put them. It was on my ranking. Check the logs because last year I didn't believe in Justice because I thought Justice was going to shut them down.
I did.
But this is a very different scenario. This was a solved Overwatch 1 meta, a game that's like we knew how this game is going to be played. We don't know how Overwatch 2 is going to be played.
So here's the thing. If you're Washington Justice and you want to perform at least like averagely in the North American region, the teams you have to beat up on are Vancouver Titans, Solano Spitfire, New York Excelsior. I'll even throw in Toronto Defiant there, Paris Eternal, Florida Mayhem. Like Washington Justice, I think they have a talent advantage against all of those teams. And if
Toronto
they underperform, what?
Toronto Defiant.
I don't think Justice have a talent advantage.
Yeah, I think Washington Justice have better tanks. I think they have a better DPS trio than Toronto Defiant. If you want to say that Twilight and Shoring is better support, by
I would
far.
agree.
Absolutely. By far and away, they have a better support line. Maybe even better coaching if you're a KDG fan, which I have been since 2019. So honestly, I was a big supporter of the two roster.
He did great last year.
Internal scrims, whatever. But Washington Justice, like they upgraded from Jerry to Happy, which is an upgrade. It's an upgrade. If Decay for whatever he becomes emo again for the third season in a row, and he's like, hey, I don't want to play long range hit scan. Okay, so I've been happy Assassin. That's great. As long as Assassin doesn't have another meltdown, that'll be fine. That'll be a good DPS line. I think just having one tank like Mag can play the Winston and the Reinhardt. That's good and all. Good main tank stuff. And Kalios is it's a pretty solid off tank. Like I think this roster is fine. I think they have a lot of talent on this roster, and all they have to do is not mess up, and they'll beat up on some of these lower teams.
Yeah, I mean, the context is that people were ranking the Washington Justice last year at like 5th, and then they massively underperformed that. If we're thinking about putting them in at like under 10th, we've already adjusted our expectations based on last year. I'm happy to lock the Mayhem in here. I think
they should go Mayhem Justice.
Yeah.
I think Mayhem are one of the teams to really look out for to rise up these rankings, though.
This is probably a responsible list. Yeah,
probably right. But the thing is, Scott, I want to make the move that you're calling.
Same.
I do. I want to put Justice lower, but I just can't. I can't justify.
Can I stave you guys off for one more pick? Can we please put the Toronto Defiant at number 12?
Ooh,
okay. We need to talk about Toronto then. We need to have that.
Let's talk Toronto.
Yeah.
So Toronto Defiant have got a team full of pieces that are interesting, but not. I feel like they've done it again. They've done the saltine cracker again. They've got another roster that doesn't excite, but looks kind of decent. I feel like this backline is by far and away, though, the best thing they have going for them. Their tank line, though, they've got two really solid tanks there, too, in my opinion. But they're lacking the excitement factor for me. They look stable, solid, really good tank supports. I think it's going to be good.
I want to know why people like this team. Because I don't like it. I don't like it, and I don't get why people rank them this highly.
Why don't you like it? I mean,
I want to hear first, why do people like it?
Okay, can I go on my spiel then? Because, so we got Hisu Finale, although I can understand your complaints with the DPS lineup I think Hisu had a good year last year, and I don't think you can be too upset about him as a player. I think his hit scan was very good, and I think he plays to the caliber that he needs to, especially with when we're talking around 12th, right? I think Finale, is a big question mark for me. Like, I don't think he was a standout on the Uprising Academy team, but he was fine. But I like Although. I think Although is really good from when I've seen him play.
He won't be available to start, right?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what his situation is right now of when he's available. There was issues with his visa or
stuff, essentially.
They didn't really give a lot of context, but they said he wouldn't be available off the bat, which obviously you want to hold against them, but we're looking at the whole year. So the DPS lineup, I can understand some of the cracks and some of your problems, but if they get into a world where they can run Hisu with all, I'm good. Their tank line, I've said when we did our preview, I hate it. I went back on that. It's fine. I don't think, unless Hopper and Muse hit this like juice and they start becoming incredible, I don't think it's gonna be fine, right? Like, I don't think this is ever gonna be the problem of the team. And we all know their support lineup is great. Plus, KDG is an incredible coach. He did great with Philadelphia Fusion in 2020. And obviously they didn't have a great 2021, but he also adopted a lot of problems when he first moved to the Toronto Defiant. So I think this is his first year where he gets everything his way. He's able to build the roster around his style. And I think that they're going to be able to perform at a high level. Are they going to win the league? No. But I think talking about them at 12th, I think we need to give more respect to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to take that bet on better than 12th. I think this team, I still believe in Hisu. I still believe in Hisu. And god damn it, KDG, I'm gonna give you one last chance.
One last ride,
KDG. And if you fail me this time, then I don't believe in you anymore. That's it. I'm putting the ultimate statement. I know that means a lot to you, KDG, but I'm saying it. Like, I don't believe in you if you fuck it up this time. But I'm giving you one last chance.
Okay, I got one take for you. Break this down for me. Hisu, okay? Player comparison. Hisu is Aspire or Shockwave with more funnier PR.
No. Not only is that wrong, but you should feel bad for saying that.
No, I'm not gonna feel bad for suggesting a take.
Hisu's had way higher peaks than either of those players. Not that he plays like that all the time. He's also been proven against better competition than them so much more often because he's played at that level repeatedly. He's been really.
Are you referencing the 2020 Fusion when he played Sombra? Or,
no, he didn't play Sombra. He played Widow at the end of the season. He was playing Hitscan for them. He benched Carpe for a while. He played fucking Hanzo for the Toronto Defiant and popped the fuck off like
fucking owns.
Well, he doesn't.
No, he can own. He can own, but he doesn't always dominate. The problem is when he's the best part of your DPS line. That to me is the problem. And this team is so unexciting to me because he lacks all firepower. But I really don't think that it's fair to call him an Aspire or Shockwave with funnier PR. What's even the funny PR? What's the funny PR?
Because I mean, the funny PR is that it's the Hees is Lease. For example,
you picked the most corpo meme as the PR. You picked the most corpo one. That's the one they're putting on the billboards that you're driving past on the highway.
For example, when me and the Boston Uprising are suited up and talking at the water cooler about professional business, we often say, did you see the Heese's lease meme this morning? Johnson, did you catch the Heese's lease? How droll.
Stop leaking mine and minerals Discord conversations. in our Swedish language. Yep.
I wanted Toronto Defiant to be higher, but the more I think about it, how much are you guys actually rating a really solid support line being highly correlated with wins over the course of this season?
Exactly.
Twilight Choring's really good, but do the supports currently in Overwatch 2 have the ability to change the fights? I mean, is like an ability to position yourself, survive, avoid the dive, is that going to be good enough to actually push your team up the rankings? Because so far it seems like that's like the least impactful role.
The win condition for Toronto Defiant so far is one, Hisu popping off, or two, the backline carrying this team for the most part. Because I don't think that the tank line by itself is going to have like a substantial advantage against some of the other teams they're playing against, like Florida Mayhem with someone. Well, I'm not going to say Boston Uprising because I've already mentioned them enough. Paris Eternal even. Like, I think Paris Eternal is such a strategically adept team that I could even like see them beating Toronto Defiant's tank line a lot of the time. So you're betting on Hisu popping off. Finale having like a huge impact on.
I mean, although could be very strong. It's just he won't.
Although, but he's not there available. And also, doesn't he play like primarily like a lot of long range hit scan stuff like that? So
I think he's a flex DPS.
He plays flex DPS mostly.
Yeah, flex DPS.
He's a tracer player who plays like the Echo Genji.
Plays like the Hanzo and stuff as well.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, I just don't think that Toronto Defiant. Like, I think people love this backline, and I get it. I do too. But against some of these other teams, I think they'll be competing like very evenly with them in the North American region, and I don't want to bank on them.
So which other teams are replacing to put in the 12th spot? So it's like them, Spark, and what? Houston
and Justice.
There's no way. We're not talking.
Oh wait, did we not put Justice in? Wait, did we not put Justice yet?
We haven't put Justice yet. The argument was that Toronto should be here instead of Justice. And again, I feel like there is an argument to be made there because Toronto's just your safe little pick, but the Justice could be a lot higher than 12th if they actually get their shit together.
I mean, Scott and I wanted to put Justice, well, Scott particularly, but I also felt the desire to put Justice like 13th. So I feel like we should be, both of us should be putting Justice at 12th now.
You both want Justice here.
I think Justice has already made it too far. I think their days are limited, and I think you guys are going through the code memo. I trust Toronto to have a better season. Yes, Washington has higher highs, I think, than the Toronto Defiant, but I don't believe in that higher high. So I believe Toronto is a more solid team, so I think it should go Washington, Toronto.
Where did Justice actually finish last year? Well, they had a horrendously underperforming season. I swear they still finished above 12th.
Let me go.
They were 10th in the regular season,
11th
and they
in the
got
regular
7th
season.
to 8th in the playoffs. They lost to Atlanta in the playoffs first round.
And we're ranking them 12th after potentially their worst year with good talent.
But that's because a lot of teams went up. There's a lot of teams that were like Toronto is one of those teams who have got improved dramatically. There's a lot of these teams that have improved dramatically, right? Like we still have the Spark in the conversation. Last year we were like Spark's last. Like, you know, they're not good.
Everyone gets one free int pick, like one free pick that we're like, we want this team to go down. I feel that should be a rule in the power rankings. Like everyone gets one free pick.
I already have two.
And my free pick is Justice. I think Justice
Okay.
is 12.
All right. Listen, I've put the Justice there. I don't really believe in it, but I'm putting it there. I'm on board with the Toronto Defiant pick here. I think they're like a little
When are we
safe
traveling
sausage.
east?
Huh?
Yeah,
When are we traveling?
I think
east
we
to the
should
East?
go east immediately after the Toronto Defiant.
Yeah,
I think we need to talk about East first before we put Toronto down, because I want to hear you guys like talk about like the Philadelphia Fusion of like a pretty heavy rookie team and how you believe they're going to do against the Defiant, like head to head.
I think, okay, you want to talk Fusion next? That's what you want to do?
I think Fusion Spark are the next two on my list, and then we start going into the higher end of NA.
So the thing is, I personally believe that Spark is going to be below Fusion on the East. So I think we should really be talking about Spark next.
Okay, but let's discuss the Fusion, because they also have there is an argument for having them there, because the Spark have more like, I guess, like a bigger roster with proven talent, I suppose you could say. But when I look at the Philadelphia Fusion, I see some pretty tremendous upsides in their DPS and tank line too. Like if things go well for MN3 is a bit of a beast. Zestra's playing well. Carpe's still very good, despite all of the shit about people, you know, downplaying Carpe. He's still an extremely good player. He's maybe not, you know, GOAT status anymore, but extremely good player. And then you've got Fury as a tank. I feel like Fury's going to fucking pound in this new meta.
To be fair, Fury did not have a great year with Justice. Now it's independent of the team's performance. I think Fury actually looked his weakest he's ever been as an individual that year with Justice.
Are you willing to say that maybe he took some collateral damage from being on the Washington Justice?
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing. It's always hard to separate out as when the tank, both the tank and support role would, like, if your team is like just shitting the bed and like not understanding its direction. But I think these are like individual misplays of like, okay, Fury didn't turn around to peel. Fury didn't turn around to zone someone. That's like an automatic diva job that I was watching like last year, where like that's those individual mistakes that are separate from your team, right? Like unless you're making a play like where everyone has to be in on this play, which let's be honest, just weren't making too many of those. It's more so like as an individual, I didn't love Fury. It's not that I don't think Fury is going to perform well though. I just think he had his worst individual year ever on the Justice, but he still probably will have a great year here, especially because now he can be more independent as a player, I think, in the new tank role.
Yeah. If I think about players that have, across their history of playing, demonstrated an ability to be hyper flexible, insanely mechanically gifted, and good in a like individualistic, I am a solo tank environment, he's not at the top of the list, but he's up there.
Up there, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
I kind of believe in this team, but my doubts start to creep in when you look at the and his system as a whole, and particularly the backline that seems a bit bleh.
I actually think their
backline
backline's underrated.
But I think overall it's a very like compact, really well-talented team. Like I think as a tank line, if you have Fury as your solo tank in a 5 versus 5 setting, and you have even MN3 and Cist, I think that's like the duo, and Carpe can just be like a cherry on top with like the MVP reputation, and can sub in with like Cassidy and be a difference maker. I'm gonna fix that. Like, I honestly don't think that's a bad support. Like, there's no weakness as much with this team as we look at some of these other teams and we're like, oh, Toronto Defiant tank line, or like whoever's back line. Like, there's no weak area with this Fusion team. I think they're well-rounded and solid. They're individually talented, and I don't really have a lot of question marks. Like,
They look better to me than the Defiant do.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, for sure.
I like here's my thing about them as well, is that like I actually like how much they've imported from T1. Like usually I don't like big imports of like a team, but like I think T1 was a solid team. They weren't the best team, and I think that they've fixed up a lot of like the holes that existed in that roster. But I like that they have Jin as the coach coming in, and then they have like 3 players from T1. Like I like that they can come in. A lot of these people already know each other. They have their own structure, and they just got to get Fury and Carpe on the same wavelength, which they're veterans of the game, right? Like they should know how to do it. So I'm actually really confident in this team. I think there's a lot of variance depending on how all these players do, because there's so many question marks of like, I like Aim God Fixer as well. I don't think it's like the best support lineup in the league, but I also don't know what their peak is. Like, I don't know how good they are. I don't think they're going to be the problem, but I start questioning how high they can
I think
go.
they could punch above like their weight. Like
I agree as well.
I think they're consistent, and I think they're going to beat up on Valiant and Guangzhou. And if you told me that, like, especially with Chengdu Hunters, their struggles, like recently dropping a few players, are you telling me Fusion couldn't like beat them to advance to a stage playoff? Like, I could see that happening.
Should we be talking about Chengdu actually? I forgot that
Not
mine was
yet.
just about to bring this up.
Not yet. I don't think
Hangzhou
so.
first.
Yeah. I think it should go. I think we should be doing. I personally, based off
Toronto.
our current list, it should go. Here's my proposal. Here's my proposal, and we can all see where we go. I think it should go Toronto, Spark, then Fusion.
I'm willing to write.
I'm willing to do it.
Toronto.
I want to talk about, Toronto I think is a lock. I think Toronto at 11 is a lock. Anyone got a problem with that? I want to talk about Spark because, like, yes, I agree that, like, Philly, I'm more confident in Philly, but Spark on paper, if you, like, look at the players they could play, it's like, if you're telling me they play Alpha Yi Shy, Gushue, Irony, Super Rich, you saying you're not excited by that? Like, that's a really good roster.
Well, what happens if they're wanting to play like off tank and you have to throw in Bernard in there and like Ligue maybe still not able to play?
Yeah, we don't know what's happening with Ligue. Obviously, I'd like to see Ligue play, but like we don't understand that. But I thought Bernard was pretty solid last year. And I think in the situation where, let's say we do end up in an off tank meta and he has to play Sigma or Diva, I think Bernard is both great at both of those heroes. So I have no real problem with that. So, and also like my actually biggest problem with Spark is their tank line, because I think Gushue is, we've been blinded by the greatness of the 2019 Gushue that I think sometimes we forget that he hasn't had a very good season in a couple of seasons, especially because Spark, I watched him play Brawl again last year. Dude, they suck at Brawl.
I mean, that's not even a hot take. I mean, Gushue really hasn't had a great season in a bit.
Yeah, like they had a bad season. Gushue has been struggling. Obviously, Winston is his greatest hero, but the game has evolved past that. And Gushue, to me, this is the season that I want Gushue to prove to me that he still is one of the best main tanks in the league.
I wouldn't. Maybe it's not like one of his worst seasons like in his career, but like it's not bad. Like I don't think Gushue is like a huge liability to this team, like unlike some of the other teams, especially like in the APAC region. Like, you know, Valiant and Guangzhou, we're gonna keep mentioning those as like teams to just beat up on in the APAC region. Like I don't think Gushue is a liability. If anything, I think he's a stable tank option who can even, you know, bring some star potential, whether it's like some of the dive heroes, etc. Like I'm not gonna make the case that Gushue is like the world-class tank he was, especially when he came up as like the 2019 or was 2020 World Cup.
No, it was 2018 World Cup, wasn't it, or something?
2018?
It was
Holy shit, it was
long
2018.
time ago.
Oh my god, we're old.
And dominated the league, yeah.
But yeah, I think Gushue is still like a stable option. If you go back and look at some of the stats from last year, like he's pretty average in most of the roles he play, and I think he's going to continue to be a stable option. So Gushue doesn't concern me at all. If anything, I think like the fact with the Hangzhou Spark is like I think their backline worries me a little bit. A Super Rich, obviously, he has a reputation. He's been people have been looking to pick him up for 2 years now. But Irony, he was arguably the weak point of his contenders team, where he's like a decent flex support player. But like going into the Overwatch League, that's another step. The off tank role as well. You know, how's Bernard going to play? I think that the Hangzhou Spark, they worry me. I'm stepping off the hopium that I heard had like a month ago.
On the hopium before.
I was so bullish. Bullish on the Hangzhou Spark, but now I'm obviously I think I'm arguably more bullish about Philly.
I've got a new direction for my ire though, honestly, because I am fairly high on the Spark shit the bed meter, but I do think we need to talk Chengdu. After they've made their recent changes, I'm not big on that DPS line that they're going to be running.
I agree as well.
Permanent Jinmu.
Yeah, I have a problem with
but the thing is, it's permanent Jinmu, but the problem is that
permanent
still...
Jinmu every single map.
But he's good in Genji though.
But he's
Genji
really,
looks to be solid.
Yeah, Genji looks good. Like his hero pool is not terrible for what we're heading into for Overwatch 2.
You have no idea about the 8. There's 8 months, and people are prepping for double hit scan. People are prepping for like Sombra Echo or like Tracer Echo or whatever all the different metas that we've had across the lifetime of Overwatch. Overwatch, leave Jinmu. If you averaged out, all of the different metas that we've seen in Overwatch that you need 2 DPS for, that ends up being leave requiring 2 hard carry way harder than he did last year.
But I think once again, because of the Thanos snap of 1 tank, the ability for a team to force a playstyle that they feel comfortable with is going to matter a lot in Overwatch 2. And I think for Chengdu, when you have Jinmu on your team, you're going to unleash him in a way and like build your meta around him when there's way less counters for him. There's way less counters for Jinmu to be Jinmu heading forward. There's only 1 tank on the field now. There's so much space, so much map control elements now that you have to worry about, where I feel like Chengdu are going to thrive. And I'm not going to necessarily put them as top tier, like super top tier, but I still feel like they'll be fine.
Really?
Counterpoint, with the removal of 1 tank, you have less like leeway with what compositions you're able to pull off, because you can no longer just be like, hey, we're going to play Wrecking Ball and we're going to have an off tank, like play with our DPS and backline and be able to take up some of that like defensive like sustainability to like protect our DPS line. If you want to like play Wrecking Ball, you have no support, like no peel for your DPS line or your support line.
Well, I don't think Chengdu is going to be
way harder to like close distances. Because obviously you don't have a defense matrix, you don't have a Sigma shield, stuff like that. I think it's going to be harder to force compositions on maps that they're not favored on, because I think with the maps, especially this year, we're going to see a lot of different compositions on close range maps. I think we'll see some Brawl, I think we'll see some Widowmaker on maps, and I think it's going to be harder to pull off very specific compositions and get away with it, because you're lacking that one-off tank to do a lot of peeling for your DPS line and backline.
I want to add to that as well, is like, if you think of Jinmu, you're like, well, what would I say his hero pool would be? And I'd be like Pharah, and I think Pharah Mercy is way worse in 5v5 because you're committing way more of your team to like on this one thing than Doomfist, who no longer is a DPS hero, and then Genji. So really, I think a lot of the success of Jinmu being in this lineup is going to be built on Genji staying good. If Genji all of a sudden takes a hard nerf in the meta, I get worried about what Jinmu's going to be able to play and if he's going to be able to play it at that level anymore. And I don't really know what to expect.
I think either case, if you're like, hey, we're going to put all our resources and to make Lee pop off and he's going to be our best player and we're going to build our composition around him, I think Jinmu is going to make you suffer. I think Jinmu is going to hold you back, trying to emphasize on Leave and make him be the star player. And similarly, if you go like the other way and you're like, hey, we want to have a well-rounded team and we're going to put Leave on this tracer role so we can have Jinmu flex over and do like whatever, I think that's going to hurt you as well. I don't think there's a great like composition that really just like unlocks Chengdu Hunters and make them super good. Well, I think they're going to be worse in either case.
I think the resource game is also like overstated. From what I've seen so far is that like resources are so scarce, you're just fighting for survival anyways. Like the way, like to me, I'm seeing the ability for hunters to finally throw off the shackles of civilization and to be like, we can now commit to full feral Overwatch, and like we can now commit to like playing it where our backline's fragging, our DPS are fragging, our tank is looking to frag. Like to me, I look at this and I'm not saying like, look at all these constraining factors they removed that allowed them to work. It's like, no, you've removed the walls and allowed the Chengdu consciousness to flow outwards into the universe. I think it's nice that we're having all these different changes because Chengdu are going to thrive in ability, because also, yeah, Evil Tool may be gone. I really like Nisha's Lucio more than Evil Tool's. I think Evil Tool had a way
Lucio
better
more than Eveltal's.
Yes, but I thought Evil Tool had a way better Mercy, like a way better Mercy.
You realize that Nisha played 36 minutes of Lucio last year.
Don't care, didn't ask. And so the point being, and then on top of that, they still have like a really good flex support player with Monk, like someone that's shown that like one under pressure without getting peel can pop the fuck off. And that's clearly, you need your DPS, your backline to be doing a lot more damage, to be having that freedom to take flanks, to not be attached to healing as much, to be attached to getting value separately. I personally think this removal of the, just like they've taken the LCD tab, not the LCD, wait, the LSD tab, and they've unlocked their consciousness. They've unlocked their consciousness here.
I think if they're forced to play any kind of long-range hit scan composition, that's going to hurt them, because I want to see Leave on like aggressive heroes like Tracer, Echo. I want to see him get in there, get dirty. But if they're like, hey, we need to play Jinmu on like Ashe, if we need like a Widowmaker, like, it's going to hold back the team.
I'm so sad they dropped a Predator. I was so excited for this team. This
why
team
would
was
they
going to
keep
come
Jinmu and drop a Predator? That's what I don't get at all.
I don't know. It hurts. Maybe it has something to do with the recent signing. I don't know.
Could be a contractual thing. How many palaces is Jinmu promised from his Chengdu times after they deliver on? Are they halfway completed? Like, I don't know. So there's a lot of things to work out there. But I still think I think Chengdu takes a hit though. I will admit Chengdu has taken a hit losing specifically Aprita. I think losing Aprita has significantly hurt this team heading into Overwatch 2.
Right. Listen, we do need to lock up team into top 10, but I really feel like we're missing somebody here, and it's Houston. They have a double flex support backline. They have a solo tank in Piggy. They have cracked DPS, but fuck it. We're talking about Chengdu and Spark here. Every team has cracked DPS in the top 10. There is no team that does not have cracked DPS. Does Houston fall into the same trap as NYXL, but 6 places higher? That's what I'm thinking here.
I'm a little worried about Houston because I think we're all just so blinded by the fact of like they signed Pelican and they have Dante and all that kind of stuff. But like, as you said, there's a lot of gaps there. And I feel like Houston Outlaws are the one team to have the successful Discord parties where they go out and they're like, we're going to spread misinformation that Houston is going to be good. Like Houston have been successful. Like Guangzhou charged, Houston have succeeded because like, I feel like so many of us are just blindly being like, Houston's going to be really good. Like Piggy was a great player. Lastro and Iris are great players, but there are question marks around both of those things. As you said, Piggy is an off-tank player. He's a great player, but we haven't seen him play any main tanks. We don't know if he has that versatility. We got Lastro and Iris. One of them is going to have to play Lucio. They haven't signed a main support. One of them is going to have to pick it up. And then Iris, there is question marks around him. Talented player, but you need to remember, it wasn't last season. He played like 85% Baptiste or something like that. Like it was an absurd amount of Baptiste. Can he play the Zenyatta? Can he play the Ana? Baptiste doesn't feel that good unless you're playing like a Rush with a Reinhardt right now. And even then you could make arguments for Moira. So it's like, I don't know. I'm just a little worried about this Houston. And then like Pelican and Dante, both great players, they could be the same player. Like they have the exact same hero pools, in my opinion. Like neither of them really play hit scan to the highest level. They can play it, but you wouldn't want them playing it. But they're like good at Tracer, Echo, Sombra. Like that's kind of their bread and butter. So I'm a little worried that they're going to struggle from flexibility issues.
Wow.
I mean, I think that's actually, I think somehow Houston have put a cloaking device on this roster for some reason, and I have forgotten about them and their issues when we're doing this so far. I'm actually perfectly fine to put Houston 10th.
No, okay. Before we start that, I want to dial back to Spark, okay? Because my big point about Spark of what I don't like, I love their roster. Don't get me wrong. Like you heard me talking high on them. Their head coach is Changun, who was the head coach or like did a lot of coaching for Seoul Dynasty. And if you've seen Seoul Dynasty over the last 2 years, it has made you, some of the coaching decisions has made you want to slam your head against the desk. And like some of their roster substitutions, their meta understanding, that makes me think that this roster is not going to come in with great direction. Plus, they're 2 assistant coaches. You're like, oh, maybe they have good assistant coaches who understand how to coach and do really good. Their 2 assistant coaches are Miro and Neko, both player coaches now. Of people who have been
well, doesn't Neko has experience as a coach now, right?
A little bit of experience as a coach, but I fear that like player coaches are great for like talking with players and helping with them with their individual skill because they understand and get it. But I think there's been a lot of misses when you have a player go to a coach because they just don't know how to work with the team and work with the player. So I'm worried about this Spark coaching staff is the TLDR. I want to put them 10th.
Okay. Do you? The problem with Chengdu Hunters as well is they lost Roy, who was their head coach last year. And so the Chengdu Hunters coaching situation is one hell of a mess too. And they don't have the versatility that Hangzhou Spark now have. I think if you wanted to be a doomer, you could make the case that Chengdu Hunters is worse than Hangzhou Spark.
Are you a doomer? Who are you going for, Jonathan?
I think it's more spicy. I think it gets Reddit going. So I like putting Chengdu below them.
I will put. I simply refuse to put the Chengdu Hunters below
I won't meme. I'm not gonna meme the rankings. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Nobody's buying my Houston at 10th.
No, I'm buying it. I'm buying it actually. I'm buying it. Yeah, I actually. You know what? I think it's completely fair. We're giving Houston a pass for no fucking reason. Put them at 10th. Fuck there's no main support. Piggy main tank with no other options. Actually, fuck yeah. Put them at 10th. Yeah, fucking do it. I would put at least Spark at the end of the day, even if I think Spark is going to shit the bed ridiculously and they have crazy mixed roster. And also, who knows, this whole org could cease to exist in the middle of the season because of the Chinese economic collapse as well. So on top of all of those things, Yeah, I'd still put Spark above Houston potentially because I still think that I still put Spark above Houston because their roster makes more sense. Even their roster still makes more sense.
Here's the thing, okay?
The franchise could die, but Houston Outlaws will still finish below.
I mean, they've already died.
I think I might
put
put Spark over Houston. Yeah,
they were resurrected. The thing with Houston Outlaws, I think I don't want to do them too dirty. Okay, they obviously the Screenbox Exchange, they're down on them a little bit too because they started out great. The Screenbox Exchange said that they're underperforming a bit as of late. Yes, they have some holes. My intel is telling me that Lastro is not a huge issue for this roster playing main support compared to like New York Excelsior, who are having way more issues in the main support role. I think that they have 3 really good damage players on this who are like playmakers. Like they can actively win you fights. And if Overwatch 2 is going to be a damage-oriented game where your damage players dictate a lot of how the fight goes, I think that the Houston Outlaws have a really good trio to make that happen. Pelican, of course, we don't even need to mention this guy. I mean, he's like was he a role star or no? Did he fall outside of Kevster? Rookie of the year. I mean, amazing. It was like the best player on the Atlanta Reign that made the grand finals last year. Dante has been like an all-star for like 3-4 years running. One of the best tracer in Sombras in like Overwatch 1 history. Merit as well. I think he's a competent long-range hit scan kind of player coming in from contenders. I think that obviously people like to talk more about Kilo because Kilo has like higher moments, but I think that Merit is like consistently like a really good impact player for this team. So you know, I don't care what they do with the DPS trio. I don't think they can go wrong in that case. And Piggy as well. Piggy on Sigma last year, he was like one of the better off tanks in the league. Remember him on the Overwatch League power rankings thing on the website? Like he was Sigma, like competing with some of the best tank players in the entire league. And Piggy, if anything, I think that he has the mechanical skill to like translate that onto some other heroes and actually be quite a competent off-tank player that reaches into the far depths of like Reinhardt and Winston and actually not shit the bed compared to some of the other off-tank players around the league. So I'm not too worried about the Houston Outlaws. I think great coaching staff as well. Good coaching staff. I think that they can actually do pretty well.
I maybe I've been brainwashed by Piggy's smiling face as he tries to stagger a baby diva, and it just makes me feel like everything's gonna be okay at all times. But like for some reason I believe in the Piggy solo tank as well. I don't know why I'm high on the Houston Copium. Maybe I've been brainwashed, but like I really want to put Houston above Chengdu and Spark. Like I
want to put Houston above Chengdu.
You're crazy. What's happening?
No. What do you mean? Chengdu literally don't have a long-range hit scan player other than Lee, but Lee can't play all the roles.
Their team
like
is
he
still
can't
more
play everything.
complete, though.
No, like I'm worried about Chengdu. Even though I think Chengdu have been benefited by not having Yveltal and Farway because I think they can't fuck up their own substitutions. Like I genuinely believe that I think Houston. Something in my heart of hearts says that Houston is going to be good.
This is pure heart of the cards.
Yes.
Can we just put Spark? Can we put Spark at 10th? Can we put Spark at 10th?
Yes. No. Houston 10th.
No.
Come on.
I feel,
okay, I gotta yield. Fine. The majority says Spark, so fair enough.
I think we have to yield here, Connor. I think we're going to put Spark in here at 10th.
Sure.
But then
here's the thing. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Well, I'm befuddled. Listen, I thought it was a hot take that I was bringing up Chengdu this early on, and now you guys are like fucking diving down the rabbit hole.
Chengdu
like,
also, where's Fusion? Where's Fusion in this?
Okay, well, they're solid. They're fine. They're fine. Okay, they're like.
Stop. I will not put Chengdu even.
Ignore Houston, right? They're in a different region. Let's ignore them for a moment. Let's compare like to like Chengdu Fusion in terms of like actually performing better in the APAC region. Chengdu are a very different team. Previously, we would have rated Chengdu above Fusion. No questions asked, I think. With Aprida there, with the kind of a little more depth to their support line as well. I don't really agree with your point that losing the supports is going to help them because I didn't think they fucked up their rotations last year.
I didn't say it was going to help them. I didn't say it was going to help them. I'm just simply saying that
but in the playoffs, they didn't fuck their subs. They had to bench a player that was being a dick. That's different. They didn't fuck it up like Spark have fucked it up or like Soul have fucked it up in the past. They actively had to punish a player. That's no longer even a possibility for them, although that player isn't even with the team anymore, so it's probably not a relevant conversation. But that wasn't their coaching staff making a mistake. That was their coaching staff making a disciplinary decision.
Can you justify why they went between Yveltal and Nisha throughout the entirety of the season? Because it felt like there was no rhyme or reason. I think
Nisha was the better brig. Nisha was the better brig.
Yes,
and
but
if they played a lot of compositions around their Zenyatta, and they were like, we're going to have our off tank or Diva, who was late young, who did a great job, by the way. He's peeling for our Zenyatta with our brig, and we're going to utilize that Discord damage to utilize Leave's offensive tracer and Gaga's wrecking ball ability to utilize that Discord orb damage. And I think they did great. They did that fantastic. The thing is, there's no off tank in the game anymore, so you can't play that Zenyatta style with the Diva as much anymore and offensively capitalize on it with the diving wrecking ball and having like a Pharah or something like that to dive with Leave's tracer. I think Chengdu Hunters, they're not going to be able to replicate the style that they succeeded and did so well with last year. And I think that's going to instrumentally hurt them this year, having to rely on Jinmu instead. And Gaga has to be like the main tank who dives in as well as Peel for his backline. I think Chengdu Hunters, I think they're broken. I think it's a broken roster and they're not going to be as good as last year.
Peel? You think they're going to peel? They're just the backline's just going to kill the players.
They're just gonna die. Well, it's like I agree. I think there's too big of a gargantuan hole with the Jinmu. I think they're better off just playing 5 players, and I think that's going to be an asset to them. But I think Jinmu, he's there. Oh yeah, I guess they have to. But like Jinmu, as he can't be subbed out. They have to play Silly, and I don't think Silly is going to work as well in Overwatch 2.
Boy, oh boy. I'm kind of amazed that we're at this position. Genuinely, I am. Because
okay, so let's do this. Sorry, Josh, I'm just interrupting you.
No,
I'm sorry. I'm Starbucksed up. I have so much cover. How does Philadelphia Fusion, or let's put it the other way, if you're comparing those two teams, where does Chengdu Hunters have the advantage of the Philadelphia Fusion? What's the argument for rating Chengdu over Philadelphia Fusion, except for the reigning MVP Leave argument?
Backline, Leave, mostly backline and Leave. Those are the two biggest portions. Also, I do think Jinmu is an incredible Genji player and potentially could throw out more looks for this upcoming year, potentially. Well, but I think they're going to be able to force Jinmu in more.
It's backline, Leave, and they already have a winning system. They've already had a proven winning system before. Yeah. I think you can definitely throw in the argument of like their proven winning system was, broadly speaking, one meta or one style of play. That's certainly an argument that you could go with. But I don't know. I really am not super high on Chengdu, and I don't think Leave's going to have the same kind of year again. I think if you look over the history of the league, players just simply do not have that god tier performance year after year. They don't. They have like a year where they go insane, and then they go back to being a great player or an excellent player rather than a god again. But still, 9th? I mean, we would have been putting them up in the top 5, no fucking problem if they had a pre-turn.
Yeah, in my list. But
I don't think 9th is even close to where this team should be. I think it should be looking heavily at Houston and Fusion at this point.
Well, I'm on board with Houston because I really do see holes in their roster. But I don't think I'm on board with the Philadelphia Fusion. I feel like the Fusion have a complete enough roster with enough talent to be able to hang higher than 9th. But I am convinced by the Houston argument that I brought up in the first place.
Okay, I'm down. I'm down.
Why are you so sold on Philly? Like, I feel like, I was on the train to get them here, but I think 9th is around where they deserve to be. Because remember, like, they have a lot of the bones from T1, right? And obviously they have Carpe, they have Fury. But like, T1 wasn't the best team in contenders, and I think we're starting to talk about teams that have the best rosters. I understand your like versatility problems with the Houston Outlaws, but like I don't think they should be getting a pass and that they shouldn't be a part of this conversation, because if for whatever reason you convince me to put Houston 9th, I want to put Philly directly after them. Or well, I want Chengdu to be 9th. I think it should go Chengdu, Philly, Houston, but I could be convinced to go Houston, Philly.
I could support that. I think if you compare Fusion Outlaws head to head, I don't think Fusion has the upper hand in any department. Sure, if you want to be really high on everything assessed, the backline, you think, if you want
also, I mean, they actually have like
Fix and Aim God to be better than Iris and Lastro. I mean, I could see that, argument, but right. I think you're also like being you're overvaluing maybe Fix and Aim God slightly. Like it's not
I'm not even that high on Fix or Aim God. Well, I understand that the scrim bucks might be super high on Lastro and Iris and making that shit work.
It's not,
But Iris has really got a lot of stuff to prove outside of the Batiste, and Lastro has got everything to prove on main support. So you've got like nothing that you've got evidence for this backline being good anymore. These are two really good players at flex support, and you are putting them both outside of their comfort zone or outside of what they have proven to be great at. So it's just a fucking roll of the dice. Is this backline going to be good? I don't know. Roll
I'd
the
much rather
dice.
have the Outlaws backline than an Uprising Academy main support and Aim God, who arguably wasn't even the best free agent flex support in the region, who's been kicked off,
maybe.
Known for not being a great teammate and therefore being removed from his Overwatch.
But also, I
team
think the Aim God argument also holds less weight, because I agree with this if we were still in Overwatch 1, but we're in Overwatch 2, where I feel like once again, where more freedom, there's a lot more freedom for your flex support to play than there was in Overwatch 1. There's a lot more freedom.
I thought flex supports were getting pooed on.
They are. The thing is, they're getting pooed on in terms of you have to worry about, you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself. Okay, we removed the social safety nets of second tank. We removed it. We've gone to a full anarcho-capitalist society, and the flex support simply must take care of themselves now. And that's where I think the value of Aim God goes up, simply because his mechanics are really good. The thing about Aim God that was always the best part of the play,
though, we're comparing him to Iris and Lastro. Iris has some incredible, same with Lastro, right?
But they still have a main support though to make the rest of the roster work and to do some peel. And on top of that, they also, let's just take a frontline comparison too. Would you rather have Fury or Piggy? Would you rather have Fury or Piggy? Straight up.
He had a better season than Fury last year. Remember,
Sigma,
we're in 20. No, but Piggy was good when he played anything. I think Piggy was better than Fury in 2021. And obviously, I think Fury is the greatest off tank of all time. Right now, if you look at the history of Overwatch 1. But we're in 2022 now. And I think it's hard to really just have that blind faith that Piggy is going to fail. I agree there is more question marks around Outlaws, but I think if Outlaws click, I'm actually excited about this roster, and I think they go much higher than 9th.
We've had a big discussion. Custa,
yeah, sorry.
Who do you want to put at 9th?
Chengdu.
I was not ready for that.
Okay, move on. Next, just keep going. Keep going.
Who do you want to put at 9th?
Houston.
Jonathan, who do you want to put at 9th?
Billy.
What? Come on.
Josh,
what did you just said?
Josh,
teams.
you're tiebreaker. No. He said Philly. I said Houston. So we're all different. You're the tiebreaker, potentially.
God.
Make the call, Josh.
Fuck. The problem was I was so on with Houston, and I think Custa's just changed my mind towards the Philadelphia Fusion being in 9th.
There's no way.
Pelican.
No, fuck off with Chengdu. Listen, fuck off with Chengdu being in 9th. But your comments about the Philadelphia Fusion and how they match up against the Houston Outlaws, I feel my problem is I have a serious problem with the Houston Outlaws backline, but even if Lastro has to move to main support, maybe that's still going to be better than your average main support that's coming up into that position. Oh, I hate you all. I'm going to put Fusion at 9th.
Yes.
Oh, fair enough.
I like it.
Okay,
Okay,
don't get
so
me wrong,
then
Fusion fans. They can punch above, but I think
Outlaws
you're
must go
overvaluing them. If you put Fusion above here, you're overrating them. In my
I want
opinion.
Outlaws at 8th. I want Outlaws
Yes.
at 8th.
Yes,
I think it's 3 versus 1. I want Chengdu at 8. I want it to be stated that Chengdu is getting away with murder. They've somehow gone broke yet still climbing up the ladder.
I agree with Custa. I want Chengdu at 8th, but I think I got Fusion at 9th, so I can't.
I am fine to put them above. I'm fine to put Chengdu next.
Yeah.
Okay. The great debate has been settled where no one is happy. That's perfect.
Honestly,
that is perfect. That is always what happens in these. No one is willing to stand by this power ranking. Everyone hates it, and everyone blames everyone else for fucking it up. That's perfect. That is exactly how we like it here. What the hell are the other teams that we would be getting to at this point then?
We have the top 4 of North America and then the top 2 of APAC.
So, right. Is it time to be talking about... I mean, fuck, we're actually into some really damn good teams at this point.
Can I offer next man up, in my opinion?
Please do.
All right.
Who?
I think, logically, on paper, the next team up at number 6 has to be the San Francisco Shock because of their main support issues and because that's a very obvious hole in their roster. They only have one tanking Kalush who joined the team like a month ago. You don't have Super, who we rated very highly going into the season. Now, here's what I want to say. San Francisco Shock, I'm stupidly high about this team going into the playoffs. I think their high-end potential is grand finals. I think they could seriously, at the end of the season, if you told me that they went to the grand finals against either Shanghai and Dallas, I could buy that. I could see that because Proper is fucking insane. The scrim box on him is he's the faker Overwatch. And that's so ludicrous. I'm sorry, Monty. If you're no, Monty's not.
No,
screw that. But San Francisco Shock, they're that good. Kilo, the shit Kilo does oh my goodness, he takes it to some of the best hit scan players in the entire league. And if you have that damage backline and you have Violet, Finn, like this roster is so sick. But there are issues about this roster, and I don't want to get ahead of myself and start like overrating San Francisco Shock off the bat. In my opinion, they are a really good team, but they have to get those initial wins. They have to prove it before we start putting them in like top 5.
I want to jump on Johnny's point as well, because like the proper Kilo hype train, when they first got signed, I was like, obviously Avril screaming from the rooftops, telling everyone that it's the second coming of Jesus. But I was like, okay, let's slow our roll a little bit. He's a great player, but he went from contenders. I watched the Scrimbucks as well. I've watched these guys, and I literally have watched them, and I'd be like, I think these guys could beat Flutter and Lip. Like, I think if they have their day and they have those moments, I think they can go toe-to-toe with the best DPS players in the world.
It's meta-dependent, but they could.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm with Johnny. I'm high on it, but we need to slow our roll because there is a massive number of question marks around that. Are they going to be able to have those performances on the stage? Then they have the rookie Kaluj coming in. They have Sam as the rounded up DPS player who is also a rookie. Violet is probably going to have to be playing main support. Like, there are question marks around the roster, and that's why I agree with Johnny. They are sick, and I could see them being sick and in the grand finals, but they need to stay at 6 because we need to slow our roll.
I want to throw a team at you here, which may end up sounding silly because I think some of you will probably rate them very highly. But I want to talk about Seoul Dynasty for a moment.
I agree.
Because Seoul are one of those teams that have opted for a solo tank that was previously a main tank, and then the pieces around them. I mean, Fitz and Profit are fantastic players. It's a great DPS line. But when you're actually comparing it to, the Shanghai Dragons DPS line and maybe, the San Francisco Shock DPS line, that kind of thing, they don't carry, to me, enough power to mitigate some of the concerns I have with the tank support line being just good for this level of for literally where we're talking about top 6. I don't know whether my concerns about Smurf are unfounded.
They're not.
Because Smurf has been one of the greatest tanks in the game. I mean, he has won, so many titles, 2 championships. He's been nuts, and he's actually been fairly flexible too. There's been times where he's, pulled out the Rhine and been able to play that incredibly well as well. But it feels like their team has gone very hard on the other direction compared to where the meta seems to be, where off tanks are actually having more of a grasp on the game early. Does anyone share the concerns there with Seoul, or am I just barking up the wrong tree?
I think we get blinded by profits. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes we're just like, oh, they're just incredible, and as long as they have a solid team around them, they'll be good. If we're talking about the top 6 DPS lines, you look at all of those DPS lines, and there's no problem with those. Like, I don't think you can say that any of those DPS lines can't go toe-to-toe with Profit and Fitz. I agree that I have some fears about Smurf. As you said, he's great. He's had some flexibility in the main tank role, but I've never looked at Smurf and been like, this guy can probably play Sigma at an incredible level or anything like that. And as the only tank, I do get worried about that. Creative, I think, has been underrated, and now I think he is getting overrated because, I think he's very solid, but, we're talking about the best flex supports in the league right now. Is he going to be able to play at that level? I don't know. And Vindame's sick. So I think they're good, but I think there is a lot of people are giving them a free pass into the top 5, and I think you can make arguments against it. And I think there could be metas they suck.
If we're directly comparing them against the San Francisco Shock, there are actually some reasonable comparisons there, right? Because you've got your tanks against your tanks, your supports, etc. Pound for pound, which team are you more confident in?
That's the Shock?
Yeah, versus Shock. The Seoul Dynasty versus San Francisco Shock.
Here, if I got to make a suggestion here, okay, the way I look at Seoul Dynasty, they're a better Philadelphia Fusion, the way we talked about the Philadelphia Fusion. Well-rounded, skilled in every department of their roster, whether it's tank, damage, or support. I think they're good. No big flaws whatsoever. If we look at the rankings as it stands, we got Fusion, a very well-rounded team, consistent at number 9. The teams next up are Outlaws, big holes, question marks about main support, tank department. Chengdu Hunters, questions about Jinmu. Obviously, they brought in an off tank, but with the question of the Chengdu Hunters, we don't really know what to think. San Francisco Shock, they are another kind of quote unquote broken team. We don't know how Violet main support is going to work out. They don't have a main tank. And Kalush is going to have to come in on short notice and fill out all that tank responsibility. Seoul Dynasty, they're just like well-rounded. I have faith in this team. I think that they could play a lot of different metas to a very high level. I think that their damage line is consistently going to turn up and play like really good Overwatch and take it to some of the best damage lines in the entire league. And I don't think that their backline is necessarily going to fuck up as much, even though it's creative and Vindime, which doesn't get people going. It doesn't sell jerseys. But I think this is a complete team. And I think that that's more comfortable pick than saying that San Francisco Shock with Kalush and Violet main support is going to like flourish. That's the main difference maker for me.
I agree with Johnny completely.
Wait, sorry.
What's Connor up to?
His notes. His Excel sheets, where are they?
I'm
The data.
messed up here.
What have you done?
He just yeeted out. My goodness.
All right. I guess he didn't like your take, Jonathan. So
wow.
are you both down for having the San Francisco Shock at 6th on the basis that it is a less complete roster, but it has higher highs?
I agree. Yeah, I think Shock could if we get to the end of the season and I'm like Shock is a better team than Seoul, I could absolutely see it. But I have more questions about Shock, so I would rather have them at 6 and Seoul at 5 because like there's a lot of experience coming in the Seoul Dynasty and something about Vindame from when I've watched him play. Like he just started playing like last year and he just was like the best.
Who?
Like Vindame, like the main support for Seoul. I like something about him just makes me scream like God gamer, and I think he's gonna impress a lot of people. He's gonna like, in my opinion, he's gonna be like the Skewed of last year, of where it's like everyone came in as like Skewed just made people sit up and be like, wow, this guy games, like this guy knows how to play it all, and he has high impact on a low impact role.
Okay, so Avast faded. Okay, I got one devil's advocate argument. The coaching staff. We gotta talk about the coaching staff. The thing about San Francisco Shock, the way I'm also kind of bullish on that team, they're a winning franchise, which sounds like such a non-intangible kind of like dumb thing to say, like they're a winning franchise. But Krusty is the best coach in Overwatch 1. And now as well, it's the return, not Junkbuck, the other guy, 9K. 9K is returning to the San Francisco Shock as well. Like they have a great coaching staff, and they're going to coach that team to success. They're going to get so many wins on the back of them having like one of the best team cohesion, synergy, intangible, whatever you want, put that in. Versus Seoul Dynasty, whose head coach is Toby. And Wizard Jong is their head of strategy and data. And MMA is their assistant coach. Like, they're not even comparable. San Francisco Shock has the better coaching staff by far. And if that ends up being like a big thing towards the end of the season, I think Shock are just going to be the better team between the two. That's the one big counter devil's advocate argument.
I want to be the devil's advocate of his devil's advocate. Okay. Ooh, edgy. The San Francisco Shock in 2021 were poorly coached. Like incredibly poorly coached. I think they, as much as we can't see what's happening internally, we don't understand completely what happened. There was a massive fundamental failure from the coaching staff. Players were all over the place. They had multiple players. There was some retirements of players. There was issues, people being not put in situations to succeed. We had Glister, who essentially like tanked super hard, even though he was an exciting talent for that team. We had Violet switching roles, what it felt like every week. And it felt like sometimes they were trying to do things that didn't really make sense in the season. And obviously we don't have all the information. And like, I'm not saying that Krusty is a bad coach, but last year, I think they were poorly coached. And I would like to see that be reverted. They obviously have 9K back. Krusty's a smart player, smart coach. He's a 2-time champion. Like, but that's my counterpoint of like, yeah, Seoul is struggling, but I'm a little worried about Shock, and I hope they redeem themselves this year.
Okay, I'm going to put Shock down at 6th because that seems to be the consensus here.
Avast? What the hell? That's so loud. That's so loud.
I can't even hear him.
Oh.
He's not even on our thing yet, but he's screaming in your ears,
Avast,
I guess.
you need
Avast
to join
said
from the
Dragons at
link
6.
that was from before, not...
Avast said Dragons at 6th.
Yeah,
You're just
that's what he
spreading
said.
lies and
God,
propaganda.
no, I could have sworn I heard him say it.
That's just pure slander. Pure slander. So I've put Seoul in at 5th here as well, because that seems to be what our consensus was too.
That just feels responsible to me. It might not be right, but it feels responsible.
I want a quick thought from Connor. You've just rejoined. You've been back in the land of the living. These guys want Shock at 6th, Soul at 5th. Are you on board?
Yes. I am on board. I had to think about it for a second, but I mean, it's really tough to call because you could make the argument for swapping them around either way, and you could probably sell it either way. But I still think mostly Custa's point was really good about the coaching for Shock last year. Though he has called back some of the previous assistant coaches to be under him now with Krusty, and also Violet's Lucio. And what that's going to mean for this team, and also still an unproven tank.
Okay.
So with Kaluj, which hasn't had like tier 1. Like,
here's one thing we really need to remember about the main support conversation, because it's going to be a big topic in this season. Main support as well could also mean a lot of Brigitte and Baptiste. And Lucio and Mercy might not have to be as much of the playtime. Because I think a lot of us, when we think about main support, we're like, oh, like 80% of main support just playing Lucio and Mercy. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think a lot of these teams that have double flex support, they're going to play a lot of like Sen Bap compositions or Brig Sen or those kind of variations of compositions. I don't think you have to play Lucio to succeed. I don't think you have to play Mercy to succeed. Sure, you might not have the best composition always available. You might not exceed at like Brawl, but I don't think you need that to get wins either. So I think if you got a good Brig player, a good Bap player, which I think Violet can play at a very high level, I think you're fine.
Insane on both of those, actually.
Yeah. So I think they'll get away with it. I don't think it's a huge thing. Sorry.
I want to add to that of like right now, Lucio Mercy is very impactful because if the Mercy follows the soldier around, the soldier is obviously giga busted in Overwatch 2 right now. And the Lucio is obviously very strong because of the way the pass is and that kind of stuff. I agree with Johnny that in the future of the season, Violet might be good, but right now I think Lucio Mercy might be impactful just because of those things. So I think right now, I think they might struggle. But there's also been a lot of run-up time. If Violet has known for the entire offseason that he is going to be that guy, I could totally see his Lucio coming out and looking good.
Okay. It might seem like a bit of an underrating for the San Francisco Shock, but we'll see how it performs for the rest of the season. I want to nominate the Atlanta Reign here for the 4th position. And I know, Connor's rankings had them pretty high up.
How high did you have them?
I actually walked. So I was very much an Atlanta Reign doubter, and I've stewed. I've stewed like a carrot in a stew. I've sat there, I've boiled, I've bubbled, and I thought about it more. Zoomer team good for Overwatch 2. Zoomer teams are going to be good. Hawk is good. I've always thought Hawk was really good. He just had one bad year. And apparently Scrimbucks support that, but I don't really give a shit about that. It's more so the concept of the Zoomer team moving forward and their overall how well-rounded they are.
Very well-rounded team.
I actually am feeling like, because I felt like my initial takes in the preseason when I spend some more time, because sometimes you put me in front of the camera and the microphone, and like, we're gonna talk about this today. I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna say shit. Like, I'm like, like sometimes like you don't really sit there and like really have a lot of time to like marinate about your topics beforehand, because we sometimes make the topics like the hour before we go live. So thinking about it more, I feel like Reign should be a lot higher on this list. I think 4 will be kind of. I think 4 would be kind of crazy.
The top 4 teams though are all nasty. I mean,
I think
the top 6 teams, I think, all have a shot of actually winning the championship, which is absurd. I don't think I've thought that before in an Overwatch League season. Maybe I have, but this year seems insanely competitive.
What's the swap here? Maybe Glads?
Who would you put in there? Because I can't get behind the Gladiators doubt. I see it everywhere, and I just don't fucking get it. Can anyone explain to me the Gladiators doubt? I look at this team on paper, and it's absurd. They have everything covered with nasty fucking players. It is a stacked roster that should be competing for like a top 2 spot, not the top 4 spot.
My point is, I like Atlanta. I agree that the Zoomer team, and I can see that. I agree. This is a team that can easily go for the championship. I'm more confident in Gladiators because I think I like all their players individually, and like I think that it makes sense, and I think they have that well-roundedness. I think Kevster is a good leading MVP going into the year. I think if he plays that level, my only concern for the Gladiators is like the Arns Patty Pan signings. I've been watching a lot of Arns recently. That dude seems like he's back on point, and he looks like he's about to come into this season and do what he did in 2020. Patty Pan is a big question mark, but if Patty Pan doesn't work out, I could see them getting away with Arns Kevster for a lot of the seasons and a lot of the metas. The thing that I am worried about with Atlanta Reign is they lost Unta, and I think Unta provided a lot for the Atlanta Reign team last year. You know, I talked to some of the players. I talked to Gator and Hawk, I think, at certain point. Gator and Masa, and they both said Unta brought a lot of stabilization and I think like good coaching practices into their team, and that helped them like get to where they ended up being. They lost Unta, and they didn't replace him, which was weird to me. They only have the 2 coaches with legit RC being the manager. And that worries me a little bit for a team with so much talent. And like the Zuma team, maybe they like being coached by themselves in some way. Maybe it's the Zuma mentality. But, you know, I'm always a fan of having more coaches, having more infrastructure. So that is my little bit of fear for Atlanta. But I think you could make arguments for Gladiators or Atlanta at this point.
As for the LA Gladiators, I don't know if you guys remember, we had like a team preview episode, and I was like, I think people are taking out the LA Gladiators to be like too good, too fast, or whatever it was. Like I think it was like the Dallas Fuel episode or whatever. And it stemmed from the concerns primarily about Ants and Parifan, which I had question marks around. I agree with Custa. I've taken that back. It's a non-concern based on what I've like through the grapevine. It's a non-issue, and the LA Gladiators, they end up being that really well-rounded, super high-level team. Ants is playing some of the best. No, I don't want to say some of the best Overwatch because 2020 was so absurd. Yeah. I mean, if you just say that like that's his norm, it's not. Like that was ridiculous. That was the best hit scan season of all time in Overwatch. Like you can't just assume that's going to be replicated. But Ants is not going to like hold this roster back, and Parifan is not going to hold this roster back. And you have Unter as well. Like the LA Gladiators, they're going to be a very, very good team this year. And so I as well feel like I'm leaning towards the Atlanta Reign at number 4 here. I think the Atlanta Reign, I don't want to like scrutinize them. I think they're still like a well-rounded team. They have one of my favorite backlines. I'm really looking forward to see their backline in play. I think as well, Hawk, really good tank. But out of like the top 6 teams here, I think their damage line is not as good as the others. Don't get me wrong, it's a really good damage line, but it's not as good as the others, in my opinion. And I think when you go up against some of the other top teams in the region, that's going to be what ultimately makes you lose some of those crucial fights.
Is that not considering Speedily? Quick question on Johnny. Is that you because Speedily
I'm not considering Speedily. Yeah, I'm not considering Speedily.
Sweet.
But Speedily will be available for like the final stage in the playoffs,
the last
right?
stage, sure. Yeah, it's like end of August or something like that. Like August.
So he will have an impact on their placement, but less of an impact compared to the other players.
In playoffs, he's going to be a difference maker. If they make the playoffs, Atlanta Reign is going to be a sick force to be reckoned with.
The 2 teams that I would be considering, and this sounds mad out of my mouth, but the 2 teams I would be considering for 4th place are Atlanta and actually Dallas Fuel. I think Dallas have the weakest. I think Dallas have the.
No. I've been with Josh. I agree with Josh. Keep going.
Dallas has the weakest DPS line out of the top 6 teams, which seems bonkers, but when you look at the talent that's available in that top 6, it's fucking crazy. And even though their tank line and support line are excellent, I'm not convinced that that's going to be enough to shoot them up the rankings. I feel like the talent that they're competing against is absurd, and I don't think they're just an automatic top 2 pick. In the same, I think Shanghai is an automatic top 1, top 2 pick. I mean, I don't even know how you would really argue with top 2, but sure, the Shanghai all the way up the list. I don't think the same for Dallas.
No, I disagree. I disagree so much. They are the Earth Shapers. They are the originators of the world, and we're just merely living in it. They dictate how Overwatch 2 is played. They dictate the metas, the play styles. They find immediately just like what is the strongest kind of composition, what is the strongest focal point of your composition, and they play around it, and they set the pace for literally everything. Everyone's just playing catch-up in the North American region because Dallas Fuel are so good.
Are you saying that happened last year?
It's either the Atlanta Reign.
Are you saying that happened last year, or are you saying that's what you're predicting to happen, or are you saying that's what's currently happening based on Scrimbox? Where did that narrative spawn
Pretty much
from?
all of it. Pretty much all of it at the same time. Pretty much all of it at the same time. Dallas Fuel are sick.
Yeah,
I will not stand for the slander.
I was in your place, Josh. I'm like, man, they don't have a hit scan still. They didn't have that sexy hit scan. And then Tasmo, he came into my ear and he was like, I think Edison's going to be sick. I think that he was underutilized in Atlanta Reign. I think he's going to be able to do it. And if for whatever reason, we have Gurio as well. And I was like, you know what? You're right, and I agree with Johnny
You've been
because they are
compromised.
the pie. No, yeah, kind of. But it's not just the hit scan. Like, I still do have concerns about the hit scan player. But Johnny is 100% right. With Rush at the helm as that head coach, and the way that their team plays as a hive mind, like they literally do dictate and determine how the game is going to be played. And if you ever wanted to have pioneers of a game. And going into a season, this is the season. Overwatch 2, everything is going to be... Because remember, this isn't just the first patch we're going into. We are going to see heavy-set fundamental changes throughout the season, right? Because we expect more balance changes. We expect aggressive balance changes. We expect... Well, I'm hoping for at least a couple more heroes throughout the league. I'm expecting Dallas to be able to take that on the chin better than any other team in the league.
Okay.
If you want to dethrone the Dallas Fuel, you need a disruptor. You need someone that's just like changes the game. You need someone like Unseen 2020, leave for the Chengdu Hunters. For the San Francisco Shock, that could be like Proper. Proper could be the disruptor that just like overtakes the Dallas Fuel and just like makes them crumble. But for the Atlanta Reign, even like the LA Gladiators, for them to punch above and overcome the Dallas Fuel, I don't see like the one thing that like makes them more successful.
By the way, last season, both of those teams did it at various points in the year. Like Atlanta Reign did overcome them at the end of the season, and the Gladiators did overcome them while Dallas Fuel was slumping towards the end of the year. All right, sure, Dallas had already locked up their place in playoffs. There's an argument that they weren't even giving a fuck or whatever, but they both actually had, at various points, higher peaks than the Dallas Fuel did, and Dallas actually ended behind that former Atlanta team. Like, Dallas were not Dallas were not untouchable freaks all year.
Objectively, yes, but I think that context here matters, and I really do think that when you saw Shanghai Dragons play against Dallas Fuel in that upper bracket final, I think that was like the actual grand final. That was Dallas Fuel giving it their all against the Shanghai Dragons in sort of like a mirror kind of matchup. And when they lost that one, I think Atlanta Reign sort of like snuck. What's the phrase I'm looking for here? Like, I think they sort of like were ignored a little bit because Dallas Fuel were so focused on the Shanghai Dragons because they knew they had to defeat that kind of thing. And Atlanta Reign just like come out of nowhere with a brawl composition and just like took Dallas Fuel by a surprise a little bit because Dallas Fuel had put so much emotion and energy into that Shanghai series. So and as well for the Countdown Cup, like the LA Gladiators, they won the Countdown Cup, but you could say the same thing about Shanghai Dragons. Does that make the LA Gladiators better than Shanghai? No. They won the stage, but context matters about how that Countdown Cup preparation was made for both Dallas and Shanghai.
I agree with that one for sure. But so are we putting Atlanta Reign then with a better roster than last year, possibly a worse coaching staff, and possibly harder competition? But we're putting Atlanta Reign in fourth here.
Can you make an argument for them? Like,
I mean, I personally still believe, like, because I mean, I feel like we're gonna end up locking this in. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it preemptive that we're putting Dragons in first, right? I'm just gonna probe and preempt it that we're probably all end up putting Dragons in first. So there's 3 slots to determine. I'm not
sure. Should I just write Dragons in first right now?
I mean,
Jonathan,
I'm feeling pretty locked in. So. Yeah,
Dragons are going in first.
So we're arguing over 3 slots currently. I personally believe that Fuel's out of the fourth conversation. I think it's crazy to even talk about Fuel being in and even if Josh believes it, like everyone else is probably not on it. So like I think Fuel's out of that conversation. So that leaves 2 teams for the fourth slot: Gladiators and Reign. I think Glad should go in the fourth spot. Mostly because I can't have them top 3 in the league when their DPS line. Yes, I understand everyone's currently saying like, ooh, the Scrim Bucks, ooh, I'm watching clips here and there, like, ooh, they're looking really good. Once again, though, these are still DPS, which are probably the most fundamental parts of your team heading in to Overwatch 2. They have 2 question marks on DPS still.
What? See, this is what I don't get. I don't understand the question marks around these players because we've seen the best hit scan year ever from Ants, and even if he's not at that level at all, he's still going to be good enough to compete against the other people that are in this top 6. And we're talking about monster hit scan players in the top 6. Yeah. Then you've got Padipan, right? I mean, let's Kevster, who is fucking insane. I mean, a fucking insane player. I mean, easily holds his own within the top 4, easily. And then Padipan took a break, played another game, but he played years of Overwatch, years and years and years, and would have been in the league a long time ago had he just been born earlier. That is it. That is it. That's the only thing. He just was pushed out the womb too late. And that is the only reason that he was not in the league. He was fucking nuts. Where's the argument for these players being question marks?
Well, I mean, to be fair, Patapen, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that the game has evolved. And it's not that Patapen can't learn it, though, right? I'm simply saying that, like, we don't know where Patapen's going to be at. His peak at one point in a different game with different fun, because at the same time, Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2 are not the exact same game. They are different games in how they're played. Now, would I think someone like Patapen's going to have an issue with that? When you look at, especially when you look at how he played in like moving to Valorant, especially, probably not, but it's still hard to guarantee it. Also, at the same time, you still have to take into account the fact that, like, yes, do I think Space is really, really good? I'm starting to peak. My Hawk appreciation levels are starting to peak. They're starting to rise even further than, like, because I think the thing about Space is, when I think about Space now, he's that guy that's always going to put you in the top. But is he ever going to have another performance where he's going to send you like a wow factor? Is it going to give you
I
think he
is.
could. I think he could, but I think Hawk is starting to hit that peak. I think Space has hit his peak where he's going to be pushing those performances. He's always going to be excellent, like top, like, you know, very top of the league. But I think Hawk hasn't quite hit his peak yet of like him putting out monstrous level performances.
I think it's such a fine line between them. It can't possibly sway you one way or the other, in my opinion. There's no reason to believe much more in Hawk than there is in Space, to the point where it flips things.
And also,
is anyone else on the Gladiators fourth?
I think this is Kai's year too. I also think it's Kai's year.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Kai's year. What does that even mean? Like, he's been really good the past 2 years.
No,
Yeah,
I think it's
nuts.
good. But the thing is, Kai's always been good, but I think he's still had the problem where he's been stuck on like teams that haven't quite worked for him. You know, and
I think Kai could outperform Ants. I think that's reasonable. Yep. I think for some reason people are forgetting Kevster is on this team. I think people are just forgetting. I think people think Ants Paripan is just going to be the duo all year. Kevster's fucking cracked.
Also, I feel like Atlanta Reign's rookie support line, yes, I'm just as excited as everyone else. They're great. Let's remember, on the Gladiators, we have Funny Astro, Shu, and Skewed. That is a very good backline that we have.
It's really good.
And like, it doesn't, I think even if OG and Ultraviolet live up to their expectations, they will just be equivalent to that.
Put Rain forth.
I've started playing Atlanta.
I had Rain is essentially my appeal to emotion team for them going higher. I essentially just believing in Zoomer Overwatch. I'm believing in Child Soldier Overwatch, and like they are going to. That's essentially what I'm believing in. Gladiators, yeah. I mean, the team looks fucking monster or something.
I'm gonna try and push this further. I feel like Gladiators have a good shot to be able to beat Dallas. No. I feel like Gladiators might be the number one team in North America. I think people are snoozing.
I will agree with Josh in that I was also very critical of Dallas. And I think before it's the idea that Avast talked about where it's like, once I really stewed on the fact of like, do I really want to put Gladiators above Dallas? Yes, I think Gladiators are more well-rounded and theoretically they're great. But like the hive mind of Dallas Fuel and the fact that they understand the game. We've seen Gladiators fumble the ball many times over the last couple of years with these coaches, with these players, where they just don't really understand the meta or they get caught not being able to play something. Dallas are the pioneers. Johnny is right. Like they play their game, they know how to play, and everyone always ends up playing catch up. Dallas proved that last year. They had an even more gargantuan hole last year when they finished essentially fundamentally second throughout the entire year. They have less holes. I have more confidence in this roster. Yes, they got nerfed by only one tank, but I just don't think that this team is going to underperform after last year. I think if anything, this is going to help them going into a new game.
Yeah. Also, on top of that, like you said, like I agree with all Custa's points. And on top of that, there is no one that I want more heading into the breach of a new game than Rush. And his current minions and like the way that he builds this team. And also, I think people are still underselling the fact that like even if Edison somehow doesn't perform, Sparkle Soldier is very good. Like they could bust out the Sparkle Soldier and it would compete. It would compete at the highest level. It really would. So like I still think overall Fuel are just the best built team. And like when you look at their top down structure heading into Overwatch 2, even if they might be some slightly lacking points. But I think Fuel should still be number 2.
Plus, Genji is meta and right now, and if Sparkle gets to play Genji, he is the best Genji.
But the thing is, also, even if they don't put Sparkle on Genji, they could even put Dohan Genji and probably still be perfectly good. Be great.
I mean, heading into this early meta where it feels very like, you know, Lucio, Hive Mind, always, full commit. Genji's good. Yeah, I mean, Dallas should be insane at that meta.
They invented that meta.
Are we happy with these final rankings?
I think so.
I think so.
I'm satisfied. I'm not gonna say I'm happy. I'm satisfied.
I mean, we've all made compromises, but at the end of the day, this is the best collated ranking we could come up with, I think.
What's the team we've overrated the most, and what's the team we've underrated the most? What's the team that's going to make us look stupid because they shit the bed? It could be Chengdu at 7.
I think actually, I'm potentially putting Outlaws. I'm gonna put Outlaws.
Ooh,
that's the highest. The team that played that we overrated.
The thing is, if you say that Outlaws is going to be the team that's overrated, you're betting on the likes of Defiant, Justice, Mayhem, Paris to succeed above them, and I'm not willing to do that.
I'm not betting on them to succeed. I'm just betting on them to fail less.
All right.
Okay.
Whatever. You changed the words out.
I think we've overrated the Outlaws, but I think we've underrated Chargers of this.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
No,
That's
actually,
your pick.
I take it back.
Your pick is Charge.
We've overrated Boston. We've overrated Boston. There
You
it is.
overrated Boston. You're crazy.
I want them in 18. Seeing them at 17, it just scares me. It just I something about it. My alarm bells are ringing when I just see it. It's something about. I guess it's 17. It's not overrated, but
I'm actually gonna say the inverse and probably say my underrating would. I think we might have underrated Boston potentially.
Boston can't be the team we've underrated the most, though. You're looking in the wrong area of the fucking thing.
All right.
Dude, there's got to be teams
underrated the most. I'm gonna say it, and everyone's gonna laugh and hate it. But London Spitfire, if they get anything above 20, they've instantly overachieved. If they get 19, they've done better. 18, they've done better.
That's such a low bar.
I think that they can legitimately. I think London Spitfire can legitimately beat Titans, Boston, NOXL, take maps of Paris, and probably even beat Paris. I think London Spitfire. I think that's way more competitive than last year. Last year it was just like a waste. It was just like Vancouver, London Spitfire. They're robots of entertainment. They're not worth watching whatsoever. I think legitimately the bottom teams in NA can compete with half the mid-table.
Technically Spitfire was still competing with Titans at points during the season. They definitely were still last year, at least. I definitely think Spitfire Titans could have been a toss-up anytime. We just didn't have a matchup that often.
Okay. We've spent forever here. Everyone's going to be molding. The Premier chat is going people chat, just people losing their fucking minds. That's been the preseason power rankings. It's been, the same as before. Everyone hates it.
Just quickly, can we just do quick predictions like MVP, Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year?
Okay.
Can we just go through those 3?
You lead it then, because I need to piss.
Okay. Okay. All right. There we go. Josh has to piss. I mean, he's been off for 2 months, so it's the same fucking episode anyway. Proper San Francisco Shock. He's going to be the unanimous MVP of the year.
MVP?
Yeah. If you don't pick, Rookie of the Year. Rookie of the Year.
I'm like, Johnny, you're about to break the internet.
No. I lost it. We need Sideshow back. Proper has to be the Rookie of the Year pick unanimously. He's favored.
I think he's the favorite. I think he has the most hype, and I think he's on a good team. I agree with that.
That's probably the safest bet. So fuck it. I'll go with Proper. Yeah.
Any honorable mentions?
I will give an honorable mention to someone I think is going to potentially. I'm going to give an honorable mention, but it's going to be wild. It's going to be crazy. Well, not that crazy or wild. Chorong of Defiant.
I like it.
Interesting.
Chorong of Defiant.
It's gonna be hard for a main support to win an award.
It is, but also I think we're kind of underestimating the dynamic of how much supports really need to actually frag heading into Overwatch 2.
All right.
I think supports need to actually frag heading into Overwatch 2. Or at least generate lots of value on the map comparatively what they used to.
All right.
My hot take, Rookie of the Year, is going to Paddy Fan. I think if Paddy Fan hits his peak and he plays on the Gladiators and he ends up getting a meta, he could be nuts. Wow. And I think I could see him competing.
I like that pick. That's fun.
Are we discussing secondary Rookie of the Years?
We're talking
it's the unanimous one.
What's your Rookie of the Year? The unanimous. We said
it just has to be proper, right?
Yeah.
So we'll talk about other ones.
Honorable mentions.
Right. I see.
We mentioned so far, Avast mentioned Chorong and Custa said Parafan, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah?
You got anyone?
I mean, Speedily just joins the league too late to really be in the running for something like that, doesn't he? But should be a nasty player to keep your eye on.
Yeah.
MVP? Dude, the MVP just always goes to the team that... Oh, no, I guess it doesn't go to the team that
Not
wins
always,
necessarily.
but yeah, not always.
So,
It depends.
MVP pick?
I'm going to put
I think there's a chance it goes to Proper if Shock end at the top of the table in North America.
MVP...
Here's the thing. I agree with Custa in a sense that you're going to have the top teams of NA battle each other, just like PvP the entire season, where it's like taking maps of each other, taking match of each other. Great like stage qualification matches where like, oh, Gladiators missed a stage, Shock missed a stage, Atlanta missed a stage, hell, even like Fuel might miss a stage. Shanghai Dragons are just going to spawn camp in the APAC region, and they might go like, I don't know how many matches there are, they might go like 28-3. Like they may just set like the league win record because they're just going to feast on all these other teams. And at that point, it's going to be like Lip that ends up winning the MVP award because they've dominated the regular season.
I think Lip will suffer from the overexposure thing about MVP. You know, people don't want to give MVP to the same person repeatedly and give props to the same guy over and over again. I think if anything, we might end up in a position this year where we're so focused on the tank role because it's different that the best tank might end up winning MVP. So you could be in a world, honestly, I don't even know who's going to be better out of like Fearless Hanbin, but I could see somebody like that winning, you know, like an MVP. If one of the off tanks just goes dumb crazy, like a Void or a Hanbin or something like that, I could see the narrative building behind them and being like, this is the reason their team was the best, because they adapted to tank the best.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't even know who that would be. I genuinely don't have a player in mind.
I'm saying Hawk.
Dude, he's on the hopium on Hawk play. He's
saying
Hawk.
Hawk for MVP.
I'm saying Hawk.
Every person on this podcast has been compromised by a different team. It's crazy. Jonathan's been paid by fucking Boston Uprising. Custer's been paid by the Guangzhou Charge and by bloody... Who were you ranting about earlier as well?
Was it Spark?
No, I can't remember, but you've been paid off by somebody. And by Dallas, you got paid by Tasmo.
Oh yeah, Tasmo.
And then you're just on the Hawk fucking train.
Well, no, I've not been paid off. My telomeres have been shorted. I've become the Zoomers, and I'm one with them. So like that's the thing. I just believe.
Okay. What about Coach of the Year?
This is a stupid award because we never know what coaches do.
Yeah,
but I'm going to go with Goomba because I think Mayhem is going to do really well. Obviously, we put them where we think realistically they are, but I've heard they've been doing great things, and I have a lot of respect for him as a coach.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, I think they're going to overperform off of expectations, which I think is very representative of the coach.
Yeah, I think that's
okay. I'm
gonna
go for a crazy pick here. I'm gonna go for a crazy pick. I feel like it might be FaZe from the LA Gladiators. I think fans really like this Gladiators team. I think they're going to be, from the outside, like a fun team as well because they have Onter on this roster. I think they're going to be able to play a lot of different compositions, so fans will be able to appreciate a team that flexes between, like, I don't know, Patifan like playing May with Brawl compositions, or Ans on like Widowmaker, really solid across the board, no real flaws. And I think FaZe is going to benefit from being like the head coach of a really fun franchise that can play a lot of different compositions and compete at a really high level. So that's also a bit of like voting fatigue that you don't immediately consider like Moon from the Shanghai Dragons again, or Rush from the Dallas Fuel. But if there's like an outside shot, I think FaZe could be a candidate at least.
Intriguing. Is there another vote that we commonly
there
through?
could always be the repeat, right? Can't there be a repeat? You could theoretically get Rush again or something, but
yeah.
I think for fun, it
wasn't Rush last year. It was Moon, wasn't it?
Oh, it was Moon. Oh yeah, then I'm gonna go Rush.
Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Are there other votes though that we normally go through? I can't remember off the top of my head whether there's like other things.
No, I mean
you
can do like you can do like roll star things, but that's too much. That's a lot.
That's too many.
Work it out.
They've had enough free content for today.
Yeah.
They've had enough.
They really have. All right. Mold away in the comments. Please listen, I want to hear the team that we've ranked the worst, but also why. I'm going to test your brain cells and your literacy skills, because when I see the comments and it's like these fools doubting whoever it is, the Outlaws, I want to see your reasoning behind this, okay? You never give it, so go on. Give it a shot. See if you can come up with a coherent argument. Follow the Twitter. Subscribe to the channel as well. We'll be doing shit around the opening weekend, I'm sure, and talking Overwatch 2 and all sorts of different things. So keep following us for more updates. But that does it for the preseason Power Rankings episode. Bye-bye.